No, it's the appointed hour. They're close to it. We'll get started here in just a second.
I was gonna say church.
Church. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. We're a minute ahead, but we'll get going. I think we got a quorum, so. All right, we're on. All right. Sounds good. Well, welcome everyone to the October 8th, 2025 Bar Large Meeting in Public Meeting Room at 2 George Street. My name is Trey Watkins, and I'll be serving as the chairman this afternoon. The other board members present here this afternoon are Luda Supchuck, James Metter, Seaton Brown, and Joel Trantham. Our city staff present are BD Wortham Galvin, our city architect, Lawrence Courtney, our staff architect, and Brad Thomas, staff architectural planner. The applicants have been required to submit any documents in advance of the meeting. Staff will control the presentation. That includes everything submitted by the applicant by the deadline in accordance with the submittal requirements. Those of you that have submitted before, y'all are welcome to, or new, are welcome to try to control it with the remote. Just be sure to point it there, otherwise staff will help you through the presentation. Applicants, staff, and board members are required to give their name when speaking. The meeting's being recorded and live streamed to the City of Charleston public meeting channel on YouTube. Your appearance here is your consent to be recorded. We follow the order of the meeting. It will be as follows. First, we will have an introduction and overview of the project by city staff to the board and for the public. The applicant presentation is next. This is a 10-minute time limit or is determined by the chair with any questions of the applicant by the board and staff. Any and all presenters should clearly state their name for the record. Persons affiliated with the project, whether that be owners, developers, designers, consultants, etc., should speak during this portion rather than during the public comment. Our next section is public comment. All applications are part of a public meeting. Written public comments were due by noon the day prior to the meeting, and any received comments have been transmitted to and considered by the board members. Written comments will not be read aloud during the meeting unless requested by a member of the board and with permission of the chair. And for y'all, the written comments that have come in, we've got a lot of them here today. Those have been transmitted to the board and we have reviewed those. Any member of the public who wishes to be heard in person on an agenda item at this time is requested to state their name and address for the record, and be reminded there is a 2-minute time limit for these remarks unless extended by the chair. The applicant does not need to respond to comments made during the public comment portion. Following that, our city staff will provide comments and recommendations. There will then be an opportunity for the applicant to respond or clarify to the public comments and the city staff comments and recommendations. This response has a 5-minute time limit, and the applicant does not have to use the applicant response period if they do not feel it is necessary. Following that, we will have our board discussion and vote. The applicant presentation is over and the public comment is closed. The applicant may clarify inaccurate information when recognized by the chair by raising a hand and waiting to be called upon. Board members will be polled by the chairperson for comments and for their vote on a motion. The chair shall reread a motion verbatim, and the board member making the motion should correct the chair if he has not reread the motion accurately. Once motion's in proper order and seconded, each member when voting should respond yea in favor or nay not in favor. Ultimately, the results will be posted on the city website at www.charleston/sc.gov/EAR. Items have been withdrawn or deferred. Item B1 for 230 St. Philip Street. I mentioned we had a number of public comments. We've received 447 comments submitted for 280 Meeting Street for the October 8th and September 10th meeting by 402 separate individuals. As a reminder, please turn off all cell phones and other potentially disruptive devices. Please limit your comments to architecture only. Comments related to zoning, such as parking, traffic, and lot coverage, as well as livability department concerns, are not the purview of this board and cannot be voiced here. So with that, we will move into approval of the minutes. They were circulated. Are there any changes?
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, great. Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters? Ms. Subchuck? I'm also yay in favor. Minutes are approved. All right, we will now move to the first item on the agenda is 280 Meeting Street. Again, on the public comment section, I did want to clarify a point of procedure for y'all for this particular item. As I mentioned, there were 402 individual written comments. There was one in favor. There were 401 opposed. I'm asking for public comment to start only with those that have not submitted a written comment. So if you did not submit a written comment, I would ask that y'all speak first so we can hear from you. And then if there are others that still wish to be heard and feel like there is a point that has not already been covered, then we will recognize you. But that's how we will proceed. All right.
Sure.
If you'll give us an introduction, please.
280 Meeting Street, dates from 1918, 1952, and is in the Olden Historic District, not rated, requesting full demolition of a 2-story principal structure, 1-story addition and rear accessory structure. Lawrence is going to show us the location. And then Mr. Bello, we're ready for your presentation.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I'm Eddie Bello with Bell Garrett's Architects. Lauren, if you could just skip through, hopefully you all read all this. I'm going to go through the history of the building. If you could go to, I think it's the 13th slide, the 5th at the front of the building. Next one. Well, keep going, sorry. Next one. Yeah. Okay, so I think everybody's read the history, but I'm going to go through it again just to everybody understands. So, and I apologize if I turn my back to you, but so this part of the building, this big part here, was built in 1918 as a warehouse structure, and it was retail also where they sold tires, refrigeration equipment, farm machinery, and my assumption was that it has always been a very utilitarian building based on it being a warehouse. So that happened in 1918. And then the company left there in East Bay Street for a better location, I guess. And building sat vacant for a while, and then a full-scale renovation occurred late 1951 for the dealership. And if you read what I turned in and what I've researched, and I got research from others, this was a wholesale modernization of the building. And this was in late 1951, 1952. So what they did, they cut out a big hole of this facade and added this 1-story addition, stuccoed this entire front facade. I believe they also added this parapet, because you'll look in a minute, I'll explain that. So basically this whole facade was new, put in steel windows, which were kind of the common window of the time, especially for an auto dealership. Very common, and they took out, from what I can tell, they took out all of the historic windows from 1918, put in new window openings and new windows that are steel, or steel. And then next slide, please, Lawrence. And then in the back, in the back, they may have kept these, but you can see they kind of left the back alone. This is why I think the front facade was changed, because I believe that the front facade followed that same gable. And this sort of detail is a very kind of 50s detail. So my point is that whole facade changed in 1952. Then, for some reason, the auto dealership was only there a couple of years, like 2 years. It was vacant for a while, and then it became several, it was a wholesale place for fabrics, I think. It's in there. Then it was empty for a while, and then it's been various retail establishments. Somewhere along the line, those windows were removed. These have been changed. I mean, these are not historic at all. They're probably 15 years old. All of these windows are gone. Big opening here, big opening here. Really, the most important facade would have been this. So for 1918, I don't think anything really remains other than some brick. If you went inside, I think you guys were able to go in. We walked around the other day. You come inside here, you can see this is all concrete block and new steel, or relatively new steel, temporary steel. If you walk around inside the building, you can see all the alterations that have taken place. Because this building's been altered so much, we think it's worthy of demolition. I want to read, and I know we're going to hear from a lot of people. I want to read what the ordinance says. In reviewing an application to demolish any existing structure, the Board of Architectural Review shall consider the historic, architectural, and aesthetic features of such structure, the nature and character of the surrounding area, the historic or culturally important use of such structure, and the importance to the city. So just really quickly, the historic features of such structure. There are not many, if any, historic features of this structure. Again, it started as a utilitarian structure. What significance it had has been taken away. Even if we had the 50s, we probably stuff, there might be some argument about that. That's all gone. We have a blank facade. Also, there was a hole cut out of this facade to put this here. So of the one part of the building that you could argue would be perhaps historically significant, it's all been altered. Architectural value to the city. My professional opinion, this part of the city, I do not believe this contributes to our character of our city or the street. And then the historically culturally important use. It was a warehouse. You know, I've been practicing here for over 30 years. I grew up here. I get some of the angst that people have about what comes next. But it's very hard for me to argue that this is an architecturally significant building for our city, based on all the other things we have to review as a city and as a staff, and what our ordinance says. To me, it just is not something we have to keep. So we request your approval. That's
Great, thanks, Ed. All right, were there any questions from the board?
I did have one question for you. And walking through this visit, there's a brick column in the center of the bicycle shop under the facade. Is that something that you felt like was there in the original facade and the two openings that are there? I know you talked about it being clear cut open, where the bicycle shop plugged in. The openings on either side of that brick column, do you think those correspond to the openings above, or did you have any information?
go to the next one. I'm not sure where I understand what you're talking about. Go
When
to
you
the
walk-
inside.
Yeah.
Again, you can see underneath.
So
So when you go in the bike shop,
yes, sir.
there's a brick column. Is it at the face of the wall?
No, it's where you walk in, there's a sign right in front of you. It's the brick column that's right, it's in line with the wall above.
Yeah,
Right, whenever you walk in.
I'm guessing that's left over from the facade when they cut the hole in, put that one-story addition to hold up what was about. Outstanding there. Okay, now. That would make sense.
Thank you. Any other questions of the board at this time?
Yeah, it's still Windows 80. That was in 1952.
And there are, you can see in the photos, there are a couple of steel windows that are still there, boarded up. Yeah, that was, that was,
Can you just so that the viewers at home, thank you.
yeah. So,
Thank you.
Lawrence, please go to one of the interior photos I've got. This one. So you can see here, steel windows. That's the same window, but there are a couple there. This is on that south facade that's right next to that historic building. Those windows were common in the 50s, especially for auto dealerships. That was the new fashion. And so it makes sense that those were added in. I can't tell if, that was an original window and they put steel in. You can look at some, we looked at a few when we were walking around the other day, where it's clear that these were new openings because they have new concrete lintels, which they didn't use in 1918. Could have, but it'd be pretty unusual. So my assumption is that most of the openings were added at 1952. And again, all kind of the good stuff was taken away. You know, with great windows in front were removed. So.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Bello. All right, so we'll move into public comment. A reminder, your comments are limited to 2 minutes, and I'm asking for folks to first that have not submitted a written comment.
Hello, everyone. My name is Belvin Olsov. I live at 428 Race Street. I'd like to speak both in my capacity as the director of the Charleston Climate Coalition, a climate action group, and as a performer at the theater that's housed here. I could not help but notice that in the presentation, I don't believe that there are photos of the theater. I don't think it's lost on the folks here that a number of participants are here because of that. This is both a historic building and a living building. And I would argue that the historic nature of this building is directly contiguous with its living nature, because this space that once served as a repair shop, the same large contours, the same spaciousness, makes it one of the only suitable spots for a cultural hub of a theater here in the 21st century. This is an incredibly culturally significant spot, not just for visitors, not just as a amenity for folks coming, but I think throughout the years, throughout the 20 years that this theater has been running, you've had tens of thousands of individuals coming through. Every year, hundreds of people have classes at this theater, find it to be a hub, a home, an institution. There is nothing comparable like this on the peninsula. There's nothing comparable like this on the peninsula. And if this space, this unique space, this warehouse space were lost, I think a great deal of people, great deal of Charlestonians would see it rightfully as a tragedy and a sign that we're moving in the wrong direction. The possibilities for adaptive reuse with this building are numerous. That's the Charleston Climate Coalition angle of these buildings have good bones. These buildings can continue to be living structures. Our warehouses are not less valuable by nature of being a working class building than other locations because the living nature that is possible. Small businesses throughout 100 years of this building have made use of this space. They should continue to be able to make use of this space because it's an important part of the urban fabric of this area. I think if you look at this area, the missing piece that is possible if we move this building is a cultural institution and a small business hub. I think that is a very important part of the urban fabric and needs to be considered. Thank you so much.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Hi, good evening. It's good to see you all. I'm Lisa Jones with Historic Charleston Foundation, and I want to make a statement on behalf of our organization to clarify our position on the proposed demolition of 280 Meeting Street. Historic Charleston Foundation staff and leadership underwent an objective assessment of the existing building and came to the conclusion that we would not oppose the demolition due to the following 3 findings, and they kind of echo what Mr. Bello presented. 1, the building has been significantly altered beyond its original form. 2, it does not contribute to the historic character of that part of Meeting Street. And 3, it does not have significant architectural features remaining that merit preservation. The current building is the result of many alterations that in our professional assessment do not contribute to the architectural character of its surroundings. As you may be aware, Historic Charleston Foundation is being targeted for not opposing this proposed demolition because of, just to be candid, one of the project owners and Mr. Bello, the architect, are HCF board members. These relationships are not a secret, and I can assure you they have nothing to do with our position on 280 Meeting Street. These board members have not asked us to support the demolition, which we wouldn't do anyway, even if they did. So, some of the comments that we have seen on this building are valid, but they're not valid for this audience. They're about the use of the building. And as you all know, the Board of Architectural Review is not about the use of the building. We at Historic Charleston Foundation support theater. That's not what this meeting is about. This is about the building, the structure. While we're not in active support of the demolition, we are also not opposed. Based on the reasons that I've outlined, typically we would not make public comments with our non-position, which we've had many times before, this type of non-position on similar mid-century remodels, but we felt it necessary to clarify our position publicly in order to remove confusion and dispel rumors and misinformation about how we arrived at our position. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm Anna Catherine Alexander with the Preservation Society of Charleston, and we do join the more than 400 community members who submitted comments in urging the board to deny this demolition request. First, I want to speak about this building's contribution to the district and the tools at your disposal to protect this building. And then I want to refute the notion that this building has lost its integrity. This board is charged with protecting the Old Historic District as a whole, recognizing that vernacular architecture is an integral part of the city's cultural heritage. There is craftsmanship embedded in this building and so much more that we can learn from careful study that has yet to be done. Constructed in 1918 with a brick storefront added in 1951, the primary structure falls well within the period of significance for the National Register listed Old and Historic District. That period of significance extends from 1700 to 1941. The district's uniqueness in the National Register nomination itself is defined by the proximity of buildings in a wide variety of architectural styles, where there is general harmony in terms of height, scale, proportion, materials, textures, colors, and characteristic forms. That is this building. 280 Meeting Street is an increasingly unique example of modernist design in this district, built in keeping with Charleston's traditions of authentic masonry construction and compatible scale and detail. We refute the mid-century alterations have resulted in a loss of integrity. The form is completely intact with the exception of small additions. Stepping inside for 15 minutes yesterday, it was immediately clear that the bones of this historic structure are there, and we have the advantage of access to documentation and physical evidence of what this building looked like, at least in the 1950s, that could inform restoration. Speaking from experience, I can say that there are people who would jump at the chance to rehabilitate this building. We want to emphasize that there are incentives to make this possible and there's room for flexibility. The applicant could pursue state and federal historic rehabilitation tax credits that enable adaptive reuse projects, and we would support removal of the non-visible rear additions and rear shed that would free up space on this large site to pursue creative approaches, which could include a sizable but sensitive addition. We are open. 280 Meeting Street undeniably contributes to the varied yet harmonious character of this district and provides tangible connection to Charleston's vibrant commercial and cultural life in the early 20th century. What we're seeing today is that real estate pressure is so great. The property is more valuable on the speculative market without historic buildings on it. Fortunately, the board cannot take that into consideration tonight. There is no compelling reason for demolition. We ask you to deny. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christina Dodd, 42 Hazel Street, and I thank you for permitting me a chance to speak. I'm wearing two hats tonight. My first hat as a resident, 25-year resident of 42 Hazel Street. And I have enjoyed having the bicycle shop there using it. And next door used to be one for outdoor clothing and things. Frequented that often, gone to the theater many times. That's what makes a community. When you feel that this is part of where you live, you can walk to it and enjoy a show or buy what you need. I feel that our community in Anseborough would be sorely deprived of not having this. But that's my personal opinion, and you don't aren't supposed to take that in consideration. If I put my other hat on, the hat of board member, yes, Eddie Bello did come and make a presentation exactly 1 week ago. Yes, we sort of could ask questions. It was a very brief presentation over which we did not take a position either to endorse it or to recommend that we didn't take it. We didn't feel we had the information. Subsequent to that, there are two things that come up. This property will affect Society Street, the people living on Societies indirectly through the backyard of the construction and so forth. They were not contacted, nor did we contact them. It was a surprise to us, so we didn't really go into it in any depth. The second thing is there was no explanation to us why it needed to be demolished. So on that point alone, I think this should be deferred. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kevin Everly. I live at 367 President up in Hampton Park Terrace. Thank you very much for having everybody tonight. I want to say that I join my friends of the Preservation Society adamantly opposed to this. And in my office, I work just right down the street from here. I have to totally disagree with my friend Eddie and say, this is not an outlier dissimilar to the design of other buildings on Upper Meeting Street at all. There are chock-a-block full of 20th century commercial structures. And I can rattle off several that have had this sort of an appendage made at some point so long ago that it itself is protected. It's an interesting building, but even if you were to totally erase anything before the 1950s, which would be a bad idea, but even if you were, at 70 plus years old, it is still by itself right now as interesting as it needs to be to justify its preservation. I guess my biggest concern would be, this is an interesting building, architecturally interesting, community-wise, it's interesting. It certainly is in the same scale as many of the surrounding buildings. It's worthy of being saved, and there's no need to demolish it. And I would just say that if this board says that the simple declaration that we don't want it, if that's the standard, you might as well go ahead and pack up, because there will never be an applicant who doesn't have that same standard of, we just don't want it. We'd rather have someone else. That's an impossibly low standard for preservation. And so I would ask you to reject the application.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Ben Chase, 1579 Spinnaker Lane, 29407. I've lived downtown and worked downtown most of my life, and I've only been in Charleston 65 years. My father born here. So I love Charleston as much as the next person, probably more than a lot of people. And I've seen a lot of renovations. And when I originally saw the online diatribes about saving the businesses, I realized that people do care, and I do care. A lot of businesses have moved. A business that's been in the building for 25 years, and the 350-year history of Charleston just doesn't seem like a long time to me. I go by the building all the time. I know it well. I'm speaking in favor of the demolition because I think that we can do better. I also think that as far as the parameters, the ordinances of the PAR, that you have to look at the architecture, you have to look at the contribution, and I don't see you checking those boxes. I see you checking the emotional boxes and the business boxes, and I know that's hard to get it out of your heads. But if you look at the other boxes that it checks the boxes that it's not a cohesive structures. There's been multiple buildings on the property, demolished past history. It's not put together properly, and it wasn't saved previously. It was painted white. If it was red bricked and everything, it might have been a different situation. I've been involved in preservation. We preserved my family's building at 414 King Street and got a Acropolis Award. I've helped preserve the Bluestein building with a facade improvement and easement on the facade. I'm going to be involved in another one at 191 at Berlant's Antique Building. So I'm very appreciative of what people care about this buildings. I just do not think that it checks the boxes that would not support demolition. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Camille Loman and I performed at Theater 99 for over 20 years. And I'm actually more nervous right now than I've ever been on stage. The thing that I hear over and over when I come to these or when people are talking about my city is I feel flooded with people's greed. And Mr. Bello said, you know, we're anxious about what comes next. Well, we know what comes next. What comes next are condos. What comes next are more hotels. What comes next are more lovely buildings to serve people that do not live here, who do not work here, who do not give of their lives to Charleston. And it has become clear that that is what the people who run the city and boards is more interested in, is how do we get more money. And the rest of us who live and breathe every day here, who laugh and cry on stages, who give our additional time after we get off work to create community here, are left with no places to live, small businesses being taken away. King Street looks like a mall. You might as well be at Tanger Outlets. So I know that you're not going to take any of this into consideration. I'm aware of why we're here. The bottom line, though, is that it is just a structure if it is not filled. And we are all here to fill it in a lot of different ways. I'm also a high school teacher at James Island Charter High School. So I know a lot about Spanish and teenagers. So if you need help with that, but I don't know a lot about, I had to get some help with this. I do have several objections, and please let me know if I run out of time. I don't want to be rude. My main objection.
That was the 2 minutes. It was, but I'm happy to hear from you for just to if you
Okay,
wrap it up.
my main issue is the appearance of conflict that exists. The demolition applicant, Eddie Bello of Bello Garrett Architects, simultaneously serves as an alternate member on the bar, the same body reviewing this application. I'm sure he has undoubtedly recused himself, but such dual roles really have a part in eroding public trust, even in the most professional settings. Individuals are barred from appearing before boards on which they serve to preserve impartiality and trust. While not a reflection on Mr. Bello personally, the situation warrants the board's heightened diligence to ensure its fairness and consistency with past denials of demolitions for buildings of equal or greater integrity. Thank you for your service and your consideration. Please deny demolition.
All right, thank you so much. And just a point of clarification for the record, Mr. Bello is not participating in the vote on this matter.
Hello, my name is Adam James Craig. I'm above 121 Crestwood Drive. And I want to address a few things that have not been addressed. And of course, I assume all of your interests are in architectural buildings that have historical significance, have some of their original parts together, and what is viewed publicly often and appreciated often. I find it curious that none of the interior of the building has been presented in any photos. I do happen to have one on my person. I wish I could be able to.
Fine. We have one of it.
Regardless, the interior.
It's his comment. Please continue.
Yes. Regardless, the entryway to the theater at the back initially is one of the handful of backdoor businesses within the area, joining likes of like Burns County Tavern, Holy City Brewery, Holy City Gym, which are not accessed from the main road. So while that back structure, original structure may initially seem insignificant, it's not this building compared to other buildings. Secondly, the interior of Theater 99, when you go into that back doorway, the entire left side of the wall is the original brick put there in 1918. Part of your entryway, looking through Theater 99, entering the business, seeing the bar on the back, is appreciated by 10 to 15,000 people per year. I hope that isn't insignificant as part of being an architectural aesthetic meant to enhance the buildings and or structures businesses held within them. Something that enhances the feel and vibrancy of the city. I think any architectural value would have not overlooked something like that. That is my main addition. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Brian Flores Azario, live over at 4738 Linfield Lane, kind of far away from downtown, but I spend a lot of time downtown. So I'm a photographer and I travel a lot. One of the main things that I notice is buildings like these kind of add to an identity of a city. And I don't know, it would just be I feel like it would be a detriment to take it away. Alternatives that have been presented is restoring. I think that's a better alternative than demolition. And I don't know, I feel like we shouldn't move away from the identity of Charleston and the historical impact of some of these buildings. Sure, can they be a little bit funky, maybe not as cohesive with other things, but they still add to the identity of the city. And I think that's important. It stands out in ways that maybe you can't explain, you can't quite comprehend, but they do stand out and they're important. And I think we should be in opposition to the demolition.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Connor McCann, live at 56 Society Street. So my family has shared a property line with this building for over 30 years. Learned how to play baseball behind it, got married behind it, the whole thing. One piece of ordinance that I didn't think was mentioned when it comes to demo requests was also is the building in good condition. I think we touched on every other ordinance, but I didn't hear that one mentioned. And from what I understand, the building's in very good shape. So my family's enjoyed the simplicity of the architecture since we've been here. I've been in our house there. And industrial architecture like this from this time period, it's getting harder and harder to find in Charleston. If we don't preserve it, and we only preserve beautiful historic residential homes, then I think we're just going to turn into a caricature of Charleston, what it really is. You know, born and raised behind that house or behind this building. And so if we keep tearing down stuff that makes Charleston what it is, kind of like what Kevin said, just pack it up. There's why protect anything at that rate? So one thing that comes to mind, and I'll keep it short, is also when they tore down Penn Station in New York, they said, what was it? We'll be judged not by what we built, but by what we saved. Or the actual quote is what we destroyed, because they destroyed it. But I think in this case, we should consider safety. So anyway, just short and sweet, because I think there have been some missed messages of support from people with adjacent property lines. We are sternly against demolition.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, I'm in Hood Lake. I live at 28 Anson Street, past president of the Historic Anson Borough Board. And I can't keep hearing what comes next. And that came from Mr. Bello, correct? Of what comes next on this property. And yet, being in Anson Borough, we've been involved in many charrettes, many requests for demolition, many requests for building. And the developers have been kind enough to at least have an engineering report saying that the building is not structurally sound. That has not been presented. We have several developers in this room that have spent hours with us discussing what's to be. We don't know what's to be. Is it going to be condos, a hotel? We don't know. Is the retail that's there into consideration to be placed in the next building? We don't know. And usually we have hours, we have days. We've been locked in a room with architects and engineers, my friend. And we don't know That's part of the question. Why are we requesting this forgiveness rather than permission? Thank you. And I ask for it to be deferred. There's not enough thoughtful mindfulness behind this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you? My name is Justin Ferreira. I live at 38 Hazel. Speaking to you today as a developer, a former comedian, and I'm wildly offended and wearing both hats. As a comedian, theater is wonderful. It brightens our lives. Thousands of people are brought culture and happiness. We've renovated and restored buildings that have been abandoned. I restored an ice house. It had ice, not humans laughing. Secondly, as a developer, I've walked around this building. It is in phenomenal shape. When I've come before this board, sometimes the most snide comment that can be made is, this looks more fitting of Charlotte or Atlanta. It's a good jet. I wouldn't have the balls to ask to demolish this in Charlotte or Atlanta. I came before y'all 8 years ago asking to demolish an exoskeleton, an ice house that was leaning on Wolf Street. We preserved it. It almost fell down and killed the construction worker. Robert Gurley and Jay White came out and said, okay, say it. Bricks, as Mr. Bello said, leaning bricks. These are bricks that house life, companies, people. We restored 609 King Street. 20 years newer than this, a store. An ice house myself, 1910, same age. An ice house, didn't store no humans. 511 Meeting Street, 1913, 5 years newer, a store. The current property is older, in great shape, structurally sound, in use, and has 0 cracks, not leaning, and is completely commercially viable. We're not asking, and I'm not here asking for this building not to be demolished because I love this building. The BAR is a privilege on behalf of this city. We have a right, we don't have a right to have your fiduciary duty of architectural design. We have a privilege based on consistency. And if y'all deviate from that, or it is deviated from, I 8 years ago would come in and have the right to knock down that ice house. Gray Star could knock down the Art Deco building. 511 Mean Street could knock down their building. If I go in there and buy that bike shop and get a mountain bike and a helmet and go out there, they'd say, look at that sign that says slippery when wet, warning you about a slippery slope. This is a slippery slope. Y'all got sued by 295 Meeting Street for being arbitrary and capricious. You were not at all. You were appropriate, consistent, and prudent. Thank you. Do not open the door for yourselves to actually be deemed inconsistent. And this would not be arbitrary or capricious. It would be conflicted and visible and transparent. The 295 developer would have the right and ability to walk back in, challenge your consistency, challenge your conflict, and put up something not befitting of Charleston. This decision is one befitting of Charleston, not Atlanta and Charlotte. You are befitting of that fiduciary architectural and aesthetic duty to us. We thank you for protecting us. We ask you to protect that privilege. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It looks like we've heard now from everybody that did not have written comments. There's anybody else? Yeah.
Hi friends, my name's Florence Steele of 43 Radcliffe Street, and I just have a few things I'd like to say about the building. One of the things that really strikes me is a lot of the people that have spoken on it are a little bit older, so I feel like they're a little bit more used to this type of architecture, but I'm quite young, and it's no secret that this building is not a high-style fluted column Roper house or anything like that. And to be quite frank with you, when I was younger and I used to come downtown, this used to be a building that we made fun of. But I'm kind of surprised that Mr. Bello would kind of put forward the argument that this building is not historically significant. I don't think that Charleston really needs to be just all colonial, all federalist and all antebellum houses, and that's all that matters and that's all that's significant. I believe one of the gentlemen earlier said that that would turn Charleston into a caricature of itself, and I kind of quite agree with that, honestly. I think this building really is a statement to the time period, and it really speaks towards Charleston's movement into modernism and new styles of building, new ways of imagining the spaces in which we come together. And I think that that's really significant. I understand that it was a warehouse, but just as Mr. Bello talked about, it's also really a statement of adaptive reuse. And like a lot of the gentlemen and ladies before me, I just really support that this building should be reused and not torn down. It's over 100 years old and it's in stellar condition. And I just don't understand why it's not considered to be significant when it doesn't, just because it doesn't have fluted columns and plasterwork all over it and everything. It's a statement to the time period. It's a statement to who Charleston was then. It's a statement to who we can be. And the greenest building is the one that's already been built. So I really think it was gonna be a travesty if we lost this building that I truly do believe does speak to the characteristics that surround it. But that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else that would like to speak that did not submit a written comment? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Thompson Teasdale. I'm also from 43 Radcliffe. My main well, I'll start by saying this, I think it's a pretty unique building. I think it's interesting from an architectural standpoint. I think that there's something to be said for valuing the evolution of a building. And so I'm not sure why we should consider additions made in the 1950s to be somehow a detraction on this building. I think it only adds to the character. But I really take issue with the idea that you take a building that is in good shape and we make the case that because it's been altered a little bit, it's not worth saving. For one, there's a lot of ways to adaptively reuse, as people have talked about, a building that has been altered. It can be put back to the way that it was, and we have great photos showing what this building looked like. But also, I just think of all of the buildings in America that if the test was, has it been altered, would have been lost because they at some point were altered. And I think that using that as a test for buildings to demolish them really is a wrong-headed approach to preservation. When this building and many like it still have good bones and have an interesting history and an interesting architectural style. So I do not support the demolition.
Thank you very much. Anybody else that has not submitted a written comment that would like to speak? All right. If you have, if anybody else does have any other comments that have not been covered and would like to speak, I'll hear from you now. Yes, sir.
Hey, my name is Kyle Whitcroft from 3836 Chestnut Street. That's North Charleston. Brooklyn. I got 2 minutes, so I wrote it down. I would get long-winded and want to really be precise. So this is, I understand that to some, this building might look plain and maybe even boring. But visual excitement alone has never been the measure of worth in art or in architecture. Take Robert Ryman's Bridge, for example, a painting that at first glance is nothing more than a white square on a white canvas. No color, no figures, no ornament, yet that painting sold for $20 million. Not because it dazzled the eye, but because it represented an idea. Its value is designed by context, its history, and the conversation it carries forward. Architecture works the same way. It is art, but art you can walk through, inhabit, and experience over generations. Each building tells a story through proportion, material, and intent. This one built in 1918 isn't just a structure, it's a physical record of time. The decision made by this architect reflects the cultural and aesthetic values of that era, even if they don't scream for attention today. To demolish it because it doesn't excite us visually now is to dismiss the quieter, more enduring kind of artistry that defines Charleston. We don't judge art by how loud its colors are. We shouldn't judge our architecture by how decorative it appears. Sometimes restraint is the art. To protect this building is to protect a chapter of Charleston's evolving history, one that may not shop for attention, but still deserves to be heard. So keep it, it's art, just because you may not appreciate it, I think it's a lot of us.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that wishes to be heard? All right, great. Thank you so much. We will move now to city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Mr. Chair. I'm going to begin by repeating what Mr. Bello happened to start with, which is the ordinance. The ordinance offers criteria for reviewing demolition requests in the Old and Historic District, asking the VAR to consider, among other things, the historic, architectural, and aesthetic features of the structure, the nature and character of the surrounding area, the historic or culturally important use of such structure, and importance to the city. The main structure on the property dates back to the 19-teens and is a two-story brick structure. According to city records, the majority of changes to the building have been within the interior spaces to accommodate the various businesses that have occupied the main structure. Exterior changes involve window infill, staircases, various maintenance repairs, and ultimately the one-story brick addition to the front, early 1950s, which Mr. Bello described in more detail. The main structure is utilitarian in nature and is not rated, but it is within the dates of the significance for the National Register Historic District area. The addition, with its brick cladding and large windows, is humble and pedestrian in scale. While the addition and the main building visually read as two separate structures, staff must consider them as one building as there is no exterior wall dividing the two forms. The rear structure was built in 1952 as a grease and wash rack and is constructed out of CMU. This structure offers little to no architectural merit, is utilitarian in nature, and is not rated. Meeting Street is varied in the nature and character of the architectural fabric. While the brick addition is reflective of the small-scale retail spaces on Meeting, many of these small-scale buildings, such as the one-story 1970s structures at 284 and 287 Meeting Streets, have been demolished. The loss of the addition would represent the shift away from small-scale retail buildings in this context. The buildings at 280 Meeting Street have seen a multitude of various commercial, retail, and service uses that have served the residents of the city. Staff have received a total of 401 distinct comments from the public opposing the demolition of the structure. We did see one in favor. Staff believe this speaks to the historic and cultural significance of the past and present uses of the structure, as well as its importance to the city, as many commenters discussed architectural significance, cultural significance, and often referred to the building as a landmark for Charleston. The commenters in aggregate describe how the characteristic features of everyday life in Charleston are shared and embodied at this site. As many commenters noted, the site shows how the buildings have been reused throughout Charleston's history, creating a pattern of adaptive reuse that preserved some exterior features, though some have been encapsulated or removed as noted, while also serving as a fixture of the community's past and present. Staff recommendation: staff support the restoration and/or continued adaptive reuse of the main structure and has no objection to the demolition of the rear structure. If demolition is approved by the board to support sustainability efforts, staff would like to see the reuse of the historic materials on site.
Okay, thank you so much. Any response from the applicant?
Yes.
5 minutes.
Okay. What's it?
You tell me.
Yes, I think you should. The owner of the building, one of the owners of the building, would like to say a couple words to them. Do you want to respond? I don't want to go over 5 minutes, but please a lot.
I actually, I will have to apologize. I thought I knew when I'm sorry. I'm True Applegate, and I'm the owner of the bicycle shop. Can you hear me? And I'm also a member of the Applegate family who are own properties. I would like to clear the air around some discussion that's going on from everybody, and simply to say that all of the tenants have known this building has been for sale for years, and everybody's heard that by now. But all of the tenants I have spoken to personally, they have known that. I've spoken to them ages ago. We discussed everything that could change with the sale. From the building could go down, the rate, the rents could go up. There could be apartments and houses in the warehouse, and there could be whatever. Selling anything means change. I have all this other stuff that I was, and Neil says it's kind of odd to stand up here and face everything that's just been said, so I think I'm gonna have to change gears a little bit and say, one item that keeps coming up that I've been so shocked at is, well, one person said, people would jump at the chance to keep this building and change it. Well, where have they been for the years that's been on sale? They have not been around. Nobody has jumped at that. The other thing that has come up over and over is that a building is in perfect shape. May I tell you, the building is in such poor shape, I cannot even put words on it. As a matter of fact, we had an issue only a few months ago where the second floor, thick wooden slab of concrete, all of a sudden was dropping down. Fortunately, I've heard they called me from Theater 99, said, oops, come quick look. I looked. Fortunately, Brett Elroy came in a jiffy. He was able to shore it up. Had that fallen through, it could have been tragic. And that's not the only place that's like that. The building, in my opinion, and hadn't had all the structural stuff, it's not structurally sound. It has cost immense amounts of money to maintain it and to maintain it properly. And it's just not economically viable at this point because it is so far in the air. It was a warehouse. And to keep the roof from leaking and the, the warehouse in the back, obviously, leaking roof, but it is a challenge to do that. The second thing that is a challenge, real challenge, is that the corridor, the Meeting Street corridor, it's not a retail corridor. And when you start thinking about it, all the way from White Point Gardens up to 526 and beyond, it's not retail. It's banks and law firms and hotels and restaurants and churches and community buildings. It's not retail. And retail has a very hard time being at 280 Meeting Street. I can tell you that. You can look. There are only two things there. The bike shop, which is new, and Theater 99, which you've heard of. Owners. And the buildings and such for us, let me just say this. We came in, friends at 280 Meeting Street bought the building 10 years ago. My family and some friends, and basically they did it for me. Bike shop was going strong, it was having a blast, and wanted 5 more years to be there. So they bought it as an investment, thinking, in 5 years, we'll be able to move on, sell it, somebody else will put a different use on it. At that point, never crossed anybody's mind that there's anything historic about it, never crossed anybody's mind that whoever bought it wouldn't be able to do whatever they wanted. And so we stayed there. Then the pandemic came. And now, frankly, the last few years have been really, really tough. On top of which, upstairs, the front upstairs, which is half of the upstairs, the other 99 is in the other half, has been vacant for 10 years. We've had, I can't tell you how many people, realtors have brought there, trying to lease out that space, dropping rents, doing everything we can. We put in an entryway that's really very beautiful that Simmons Young put together to be able to try to encourage someone to buy. It has not leased. 319 has had a very, very difficult time. It simply does not bring, it doesn't bring retail there, and it's hard. And we're a destination business, basically destination. Everybody talks about it so great, which is wonderful to hear how much it's meant to people, but it's really hard when you sit there going, whoa, wait a minute, this is all turned around backwards, and I'm sure I'm sorry. I didn't go on script. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Thank you for your time. Go ahead. I'll give you an additional 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna.
There's a lot of public comment. You're welcome to respond.
I'm gonna respond to every single comment. First of all, I understand all of this. I grew up here. I've been practicing architecture here for over 30 years. Take great offense to any improper stuff going on because I occasionally sit on the DAR. That is a very incorrect statement. I also was the city preservation officer, a city architect for 10 years and did what BB does. I know a lot about this city and I know a lot about preservation. So I wouldn't be up here representing this demolition if I didn't think it was the right thing to do. So that needs to just be said, because that upsets me a great deal. Couple things, I do understand all of the angst about what goes next. Our city's changing, what's going on, we don't want a hotel, first of all, there won't be a hotel, it's not in the accommodations overlay, and I am not gonna fight Ansonboro about that. But what goes next is not what we're here for. Also, the issue of, we don't only preserve buildings that have fluted columns or, remember Penn Station, all right, this is no Penn Station, okay? Yes, we keep vernacular buildings. I have advocated for several, over the course of my career and have rehabilitated many vernacular buildings. That's not the issue. The issue is, well, last thing. If it was just about the age of the building, we wouldn't have a board. It'd be, okay, 1918 check, can approve. All right, we have a board. The reason we have a board is because you look at these buildings, would you please go to a photo? We look at these buildings and judge whether or not they're contributory to our city. How much historic fabric remains? When I was a city architect, we talked about how much historic fabric remained, how important is this building? We saved a lot of buildings. There were many, many, way more denial recommendations that I made than I ever made for approval. But when you get to, this is the one good part that's been changed. It's really hard for me to argue, again, that's why I'm here, that we have to retain that. Last thing I'm gonna say, I understand all the comments, but if we get into recommendations and I respectfully disagree with PD, also a good friend, one of my good friends here. But if we get into recommendations that are made because we've had a lot of comments, that goes down a really dangerous road. I practice here, and if I do a really thoughtful design and the board thinks it's fine, but we have people that don't like that I put a yellow door on there, and I've got 100 people saying that, and that's why the board votes, so please, if you're gonna, whatever you do, listen, but remember, a lot of those are about use. People love Theater 99, I love Theater 99. I mean, have nots, go to the bike shop, that's not the issue. So, just wanted to be, I just want to wrap up with that, because I don't want it to just be about popular opinion. It needs to be about what the ordinance says, how much historic fabric is there, and it's just.
So do you have any documentation or engineering report showing what fabric remains from original structures?
No, we didn't do an analysis other than just the photos. I think, did you get to go upstairs? Just on visual, I mean, I guess I could have mapped out, how much remains, but again, utilitarian structure, this was probably the one primary facade that, again, probably had that original form. This is not historic, it's a block. There's a whole lot of it. So I think that's that facade easily 75% of it's gone. But I don't have analysis of every part of it. No.
All right, thank you. All right, well, that concludes that. We will move now into our board discussion section and vote. Would anybody, I'm not going to call on you, would anyone like to start the discussion?
I'm comfortable starting, but I need a few minutes. Just
Yeah, let's take a minute to, why don't we do this? Let's take 3 minutes or so. If anybody needs a quick restroom break or whatever, y'all gather your thoughts, and then we'll come back and open up the discussion. Okay, start there. All right, I'm gonna call order if I can, please, folks. Order. Order, please. All right, you want to get us back started? All right. So we're now moving into the board discussion piece, please. All right, Mr. Metters.
My children tell me I do this all the time. I go to say something and then have to think about it some more before I say it. It drives me crazy. A few weeks ago, I was in Columbia meeting with an interior designer, and I went into her shop, and it was the most organized place I think I'd ever been into, and I couldn't believe how neat it was, and there was no trash and no chaos. And all of the group that worked there kind of laughed, and they went to the back of the store and they pulled this curtain, and there was the chaos. Everything on this side of that curtain was just perfect, but everybody has chaos somewhere. Every structure has it. And what would have helped me a lot was to have a very thorough item by item report identifying what was 1910, what was 1950. You know, so I would know for a fact what I was dealing with, and I don't have that. But when I think about peeling back the layers, and I apologize for not making a visit yesterday, but I went today. I believe that the architecture and features fit into a time when this building was important to the vibrancy of the community. I think the use of this building throughout its history has been vital to the community. And I believe that it still contributes to the community. The challenge can be that the property value itself may be here, and the income that can be produced by the property or the tenants may not support that, but that's not part of our consideration. And it makes it very difficult as an owner, and I understand that, but that's not a charge that we are to consider. I do think this structure contributes to what makes Charleston a sought after place to live and to visit. The architectural detailing of this building for me is the masonry walls and the added metal windows. So some of that architectural detailing that I appreciate is not in use, maybe not even visible, but it exists, and it wasn't original. May not have been original. I am not in support of the demolition.
Okay. Thank you for your thoughts and comments. Anybody else like to speak? Or I would ask for others to share their thoughts and comments.
I can go next.
Thank you, Joel.
I might try to speak to some of the different components of this building as well individually, just to make sure that I can kind of hit those. I think first we do have the accessory structure in the rear, and I know that wasn't what was addressed, but I think the historic documentation that's shown in the Sanborn maps show a series of accessory structures on this lot. There's no defined pattern, development, or placement of those. They've changed as the use and need has changed. The CMU outbuilding is not rated for a reason. I think that was referenced by staff, and the material back there does lack craft and integrity. I also think in its current configuration, a reversible addition to the site and its demolition would not necessarily impair it. So as I look at the individual components of it, in terms of the accessory structure, I would probably be fine with its demolition. To the main structure, I echo, I think some of James's comments over here, Mr. Metters, that it would have been helpful to have structural analysis, even plans of the building to try to understand. I even did my own historical research trying to find out some additional information, but in walking through the building, one of the things I was trying to figure out, and Mr. Bello, I asked you about the column, was in looking at the original Sanborn map, there's an existing house to the side, and I see the two large openings on the top, and rather than removal of fabric, I question whether or not those are two openings that would have related to, the front of the building. You had two large openings at the top, two large openings at the bottom. That's actually a feature. I don't know that for sure, and I don't have the information to make a decision about that. But what I do know is the primary two-story brick structure that's sitting on the site dates to the 1920s, and it remains within the period of significance for the old and historic district. I think it does, as James has stated, in my opinion, contribute to the established urban fabric and varied architectural character of Meeting Street. It has had subsequent alterations. I think we've had some comments that have said that just because it's altered, doesn't necessarily change something. And I think its form is still identifiable. I think that it contributes to the scale and the rhythm and material continuity of Meeting Street and layered architectural evolution that's happened. We can see the evolution of different buildings all the way up and down, and we've seen some that have been removed, that have been replaced with utilitarian structures like this. But in my opinion, the brick, the walls, the structure, the form itself have gained significance, even though some of the features have been removed. Its location and siding is another thing that I think we've talked about with other utilitarian structures. And this one engages the street. It engages Meeting Street. It has those openings that do that. And so I think that's something. But in looking at that and trying to understand it, the other thing I see is that the 1951 edition might obscure some of that history, especially from that element that is of within the period of significance. I think the city BAR policy on rehabilitation states that we encourage the removal of non-historic alterations that obscure the significance of the original fabric. And I wish I knew whether or not those openings were part of that original fabric, and some of the historical analysis would help me understand that, because that would lean towards how I would feel about that element. But I could see that element being removed, but I don't know that I could see the main 1910 structure being demolished.
Thank you, Mr. Trantham. Appreciate those comments. Anybody else have any other comments or further discussion?
I'll start with that. So I'm not as eloquent as Mr. Trantham, so I wrote down a number of notes, and it's rare that we get 56 pages of public comment and over 400 comments from individuals. So I wanted to at least put a few of those comments on the record, if you'll entertain me, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Brittany Lavelle Tula shared that the warehouse and showroom and the automobile storefront, quote, fully embody the broad patterns of Charleston's commercial and industrial history. The well-preserved form, metal windows, and exposed brick showcase the city's early 20th century industrial character. Those features are also echoed by Lucille Halding, Emily Reyna, and Michaela Spector, who each detailed how these intact materials and design elements represent rare architectural continuity in Charleston. Other residents, including Sarah Senst, Carter Hudgens, Harlan Green, and Catherine Painter, underscored the building's role as a living part of Charleston's cultural landscape, home to Theater 99 and multiple other community uses that anchor the city's creative fabric. Grace Gasper and Roy Owen also noted that this building reflects the evolution of Charleston's working class and industrial history, heritage that many times are overlooked in preservation debates that focus solely on 17th, 18th, and 19th century structures. Actually, one of my old students, Carrie Campion, in addition to Dan Bell and Michael Habit, excuse me, argued that 280 meeting offers a prime opportunity for adaptive reuse with no documented structural concerns to demolish a building in sound condition, one that, quote, remains fully functional and adaptable, end quote, shared by Brian Hamilton, would contradict the very intent of Charleston's historic preservation ordinance. So the warehouse and showroom together represent an important chapter in Charleston's commercial and industrial history. Their well-preserved form, materials, and craftsmanship reflect the distinctive character of early 20th century industrial design and mid-century commercial growth. To approve the demolition here would rely on some kind of post hoc ergo propter hoc logic, that because newer buildings have replaced older ones along Meeting Street and other parts of the peninsula, this building too must give way. But our ordinance exists precisely to prevent that pattern and to preserve the diversity of Charleston's architectural timeline. Additionally, without the evidence to show that the building is in such disrepair that it would necessitate its demolition, this board does not have the data to consider the request appropriate. Most importantly, our guiding ordinances, and under these guiding ordinances, these buildings meet the criteria for preservation. They contribute to the historic district, embody significant architectural features, and reflect the nature and evolution of Charleston's built environment. The buildings at 280 Meeting Street don't detract from the district's character, but more appropriately, they define it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Ms. Sobchak, would you like to speak?
I will.
Thank you.
Very emotional project for everyone. Every side. I'd like to start with the ordinance, which is stated in staff comments, and there are the 4 points here. The one is historic architectural authentic features of the structure. Historic. Charleston is port city, so the warehouses are very important for city and always been built. And we probably lost quite a few of them over the years. So this one, not large in size, but compared to others, we are rehabilitated, like Frankie House, for instance. But the location of it on Meeting Street right now is kind of monumental. And it's speaks to its time by its simplicity. Even so, somebody said that adaptive reuse and valuable evaluation of the building throughout the century, it's still here. That's kind of, to me, is it important. I also want to point to myself as a front edition. It's odd, but it's unique for its time, because right after the, I guess, World War II, people were starting to open these businesses where they live or where they work, and they were adding to residential structures these small additions with a lot of care. If you look at the brickwork on it, it's ornate very nicely, and there's no issues with that brick whatsoever. The nature, next one is the nature and character of the surrounding area. Again, Meeting Street is commercial street. It got the, changes over the time. But to me, this represents several generations of people who use this building. And I don't see how we can. And now it's, again, it's sort of monument to the time this building been used. So I think the surrounding, we have all, you know, all different structures going through Meeting Street. And this has its place on it as well. Historic or culturally important use of such structure. You know, everybody was talking about well, not everybody, the people who were in the theater. Well, again, it's a use, so the use can be anyone. So I don't know if that's, sorry, I'm not offending anyone, but if that's so important for us as looking at the architecture. But importance to the city, it is within the historic district. It does represent its time. And I think preservation of it and rehabilitation of it should be important to the city. How many of these warehouses became this slots for lofts to live in and things like that? And the last one for me, the web structure, that one definitely has no impact on how we're looking at the main structure with front addition. So that one I can support the demolition. But the main structure with the addition up front of 1950s, I think needs to be thought through again and see if it can be preserved.
Thank you so much. Few comments from me. First, what I did want to comment on was there was a few comments about the whether or not the building itself was structurally sound and should be demoed under that. That was not before us today. That was not a point of the applicant, so that's not under consideration. We're really looking at this only under the ordinance of 54-240, which are what all of the board here has spoken on each one of those 4 points. I think what we've heard from today, from all of you, certainly what we have seen from all of the public comments really speaks to me to the culturally important use of the structure. And a lot of that comes from the Theater 99 and those uses. I mean, we've heard 10 to 15,000 visitors a year and seeing some of the original architecture there. So I certainly, hear and find some compelling arguments that are related to that. But we also have 3 other particular provisions under that ordinance to consider. And you'll have heard comments throughout that this evening, also from the board. Whether or not the nature and character as it fits in the surrounding area, for me, I personally don't find that to be compelling, nor do I find the building itself to be compelling as it relates to the importance of the city. What I do question, and I don't know, and it goes to some of Mr. Metter's comments and a little bit of what Mr. Trantham was talking about, again, as it relates to the main structure, is the historic portions of the structure. Mr. Bello talked about only one portion that is really the historic part there at the front. I don't know that we have enough to fully evaluate that at this moment. And so that is still sort of a question in my mind in terms of that particular portion of the ordinance. If we do talk about the back structure, I see no reason and would be in favor of its demolition. It's the main structure that I struggle with a little bit more. I'm happy to entertain a motion. I'm happy to make a motion. I will defer to my other board members first. though.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Make a motion to deny the request for full demolition of the two-story principal structure and the one-story addition. And to approve the request for the rear accessory structure demolition. I'd like to incorporate all of the staff comments and board comments and all of the information that we've heard from the public and all of the emails that we received into the motion also.
Is there a second on that particular motion?
I'll second.
All right, there's a, let's see if we can get the motion right. Basically, the motion is, to deny the demolition of the main structure. And to approve demolition of the rear structure and incorporate all board and staff comments
And
In public comment.
and public comment.
If you want.
in emails.
That would be
Would
part of
work.
public
Oh,
comment.
that's public comment.
Can I ask a question about the motion? Does it include the main structure and the front addition?
Yeah, I mean, what I had was the principals, two-story structure plus the one-story addition is the denial part. So deny full demo of principal, second story, two-story structure plus one-story addition and approve of the rear demo of the rear structure. Plus all the other stuff.
Do you think that's clear?
Yes, sir.
All right, well, I'm gonna call for a vote. Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
No.
Mr. Brown,
Yay in favor.
Mr. Metters,
Yeah.
Ms. Sobchak.
Yeah,
I am a no as well. So it votes 3-2. All right,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, that takes us. Yeah, we're gonna give just a couple minutes for everyone to leave.
there we go.
Just for the record, though, we are here for 275 UG Street. It's been introduced. We've been shown the location and applicant presentation just started. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I'm Matt Davis with Davis Architecture. We're grateful for this opportunity to participate, especially in contributing to the architectural fabric and the built environment for the city of Charleston. Do want to acknowledge this project's been the result of collaboration and communication with many partners with deep ties to improving the landscape of affordable housing in the city. And this evening, we're seeking final approval from the board. I'll make a few comments about the exterior design based on our preliminary comments at the last visit. And then we'll scroll through the final submittal package for the board and the public. I do want to say first, in response to staff and board preliminary approval comments, we continue to study the compositional organization of the facade of this building. Lawrence, can you go to an image that has maybe the exterior? And the renderings actually may be at the end. That's okay. Maybe put a slide with the elevations on it. Thank you. That's good. That's good. That shows the before and the after preliminary comments. So we continue to study the compositional organization of the facade through the adjustment of the brick detailing and studying the relationship between the tower elements and the hyphen elements that they came to be called. We've restored the exterior veneer of the hyphens to a full brick facade. They were stucco, and we use simpler brick detailing relative to the tower pieces. The use of a 3-color palette of painted brick, which includes a contrasting shade at the hyphens, enhances the differentiation between those hyphens and the tower elements. I have brought, at the request of the staff, actual brick painted samples for the board to review, with the understanding that the final color palette may be reviewed and approved on the on-site mock-up. But I'll be happy to answer any questions about that. Also of note is the windows from the preliminary submittal have been returned to the original twin window unit style in the building. So, I guess this is not.
It's capricious.
Lawrence, can you go back to the, I guess go back to the front more, let's go through the. Can you go back to page 1? Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So this is not. Okay, that's fine. All right, well, you can just kind of take a couple seconds on each slide. These are the aerial shots, the existing conditions, some inspirations of the architecture of Charleston for the building. Probably a bigger inspiration is the 6 residences that front Meeting Street that this structure will sit behind and really serve as a backdrop for these homes. These are the immediately adjacent structures flanking the other 3 sides of the building. This was the previous site plan. The next site plan just shows a little more development in terms of landscaping, accessibility issues. Keep going. So the next 10 slides are basically the preliminary submittal, and then the colored slides represent the final submittal of the floor plans of the building. So you can scroll through those. So those are studies of the roof plan. That's fine, you can keep going. The next couple slides are the before, the preliminary submittal of the elevations. And then on the right of this slide, are the elevations associated with the final submittal. The next sheet, and then that following sheet are the long facades. Keep going. Some detailed elevations. We started developing more elevations that aren't necessarily visible on the primary four sides with the building. These are the full wall sections, and then I believe that adjacent to slides following this are basically details of those sections. As we've developed the construction documents to get ready to submit for permitting of the building. And then after this, I believe the final slide for the presentation is the, well, there's some building sections. That's a street elevation. They're all before and after renderings. So the renderings on the left are the preliminary, the renderings on the right are final submittal. There's a few of those slides. Again, on the left is preliminary, on the right is final submittal. And that's the Meeting Street facade. These are all final images. The Meeting Street facade, I'm sorry. And then the corner facade, the rear third entrance into the building is the bottom left corner. The lower right is what will probably be the primary resident entrance off the parking lot. And it's adjacent to the resident retreat community space up on the second floor of the building. A few more renderings of the building. And then this is the final slide for the final presentation. There is an appendix that follows after this, but it is basically construction details. But this is the proposal for the mock-up that will go in place on site. And with that, thank you for your time. We're in acknowledgement of the reality of the timeline of the project. We appreciate you considering this, and we're seeking the final approval by the board. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the board?
Very quick one. Is the top portion, like the parapet got taller?
Okay, yes, as in the development, I believe that may be addressed in staff comments. Actually, it did in the study of the construction details and the dimensional properties of the brick. The string course actually got a few inches thinner, and the parapet got a few inches taller. So yes, it is different proportion. On the lower right hand corner, you can see especially that it's a little different than the left. I believe that is one of the comments the staff is going to address, and it's an issue of reducing the parapet 12 inches in height to return it back to the original proportions.
Okay.
Once again, that was a function of the development of the construction details. So.
Thank you very much. Any other? Yep, go ahead, Mr. Trainer.
Comments. Let's go to BAR 301, please, Lawrence. I have some questions just about the materials. As I was looking through the sections, I see that elements are called out in terms of their function, but not actually what the materials are in a lot of the elements. And so, I mean, let me get to 301. Yes. So in looking at the porch, it'll say 1x10 freeze board, but do you see that as in the elevations that some things are noted painted wood? It doesn't appear to be drawn as painted wood and some of the depth of the elements, but looking at basically the fascia, the vented soffit, the freeze board, all of those, what are those materials?
So any painted trim is going to either be PVC or fiber cement. And it's in the actual material.
And then I have some more material questions. So sorry about that. This is final. On the elevations, I noted the only window that I could find called out was on an elevation, and it was noting Marvin Ultimate. Is that your expectation of all the windows? Or is what window are you expecting? I see just clad on the sections, but I was curious what your thought was.
It's two different Marvin lines. There is one, I think the Ultimate is the arch top windows. All the straight top windows are also a comparable Marvin product.
Do you?
I can't remember the name of it, but both of them are clad.
Okay.
They will have they'll come with the same pre-finished color.
Okay.
So.
Do you see those as the grids between the glass, or do you see them as applied grids on the outside of the window?
No, they're applied grids, external grids.
Doors, same line, a Marvin line, or I didn't see, or if you can point me in the set to where these are called out, I just didn't see it, and maybe I'm missing it. Like the entry doors, what materials they are,
Those doors at the moment, those are Marvin doors. Okay, pull out the door schedule. I think, I'm not sure, door schedules on the sheet on this set, it would be in the appendix.
Yeah, some of that information was in the appendix, like I remember seeing the windows in the appendix, but I can't recall where the doors were in the appendix.
and I didn't see the railings at the porch in the appendix. That's why I did, part of it, I was trying to go through and check, especially at the elements that really are at the street, highly visible, trying to understand what that is, you know, what the material, what the underside of the porch was, you know, I think there was a lot of questions that I was just looking at material wise, specifically in like roof to pre-finished aluminum or galvalume or standing. Anyway, did I miss those in the set? I guess is what I'm trying to find out.
No, I mean, it's going to be the standing seam roof on that. On the covered porch. I actually have not settled on exterior painted sheetrock or tongue and groove ceiling on the covered porch yet.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Good questions, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much. Any public comment? Shocker after the last five. All right, city staff, comments and recommendations, please.
The applicant received preliminary approval on August 13th, 2025. Per previous board and staff comments, staff approve of the return of the hyphens to brick, as well as the return of the previous twin unit double hung windows that were also there. Also, per previous staff comments, the applicant has increased the space between the top arched windows and the cornice. Staff noticed that the overall parapet height above the cornice detail has increased. Staff prefer the previous dimension between the cornice and the top of the parapet and request that it be returned. There we go. Oh, no, we are on the previous page. I just have one more on that one. Even with lowering the parapet to the previous height, staff do not believe the rooftop mechanical units will be visible and therefore do not need additional louvered screening. The proposed mock-up of the structure shows the most complex moments of the design. Constructing what is shown of the structure with excellent workmanship is sufficient for review of the building design. Note that all paving and hardscape materials will need to be added to the mock-up panel review for review by board and staff. Applicant was directed to bring final samples to their final review per previous board and staff conditions. Therefore, staff has no updated comments related to the painted brick prior to viewing. And before I go to staff conditions, Mr. Davis, maybe you might want to hand those to Mr. Trantham and pass them around just so people can see them closer. Because I have quite a few things to say, so give some people something else to do at the same time.
So the white is the pilasters, the darker shade is the infill, and the darkest is the.
Yes. Yeah. Right, so we're ready for the next one. Yes. All right, staff conditions. Reduce the height between the cornice and the parapet to the previous amount. Now I'm going to do a whole bunch of staff conditions that tend to be boilerplate, but because we were doing final review by the board and not by staff, I wanted to make sure they were included as part of the record. 2, any modifications to approved drawings required for code or fire department compliance or contemplated during construction must be approved by the BAR before undertaking any changes. Any modifications or substitutions to the materials or elements approved at the final BAR hearing must be specifically noted, reviewed, and approved on the mock-up sample panel. 3, deviations from previous approved submissions, if determined by BAR staff during or after completion of construction to be a downgrade of the quality of the project and inconsistent with previous approvals, are not approved, whether noted or not by staff during our review of 4 permit drawings. 4, any aluminum or other metal details, including fencing, flashing, and brake metal, are to reflect the elimination of any exposed fasteners unless as decorative elements agreed upon to complement building aesthetics. Flashings are to be minimized with hemmed edges, match the adjacent exterior building material, and are to be held flat against the surface below while still maintaining a drip edge. 5. Through wall aluminum or stainless steel flashing is to be painted to match the adjacent primary building material color, otherwise to be inconspicuous or held back a 1/4 inch from the face of the brick. 6, exposed windowsill flashings to match the color of the expressed building sill and not the color of the window. This flashing is to be held tight against the sill, be set in a bed of mastic, and not project out past the face of brick or other material at the jamb. Windowsill flashings over a row-lock course to be held back to the face of the wall at the jambs and set in a bed of mastic with a hemmed edge to remain flat. 7, all brick flashings are to match the generalized wall color. No stainless steel or mail finish flashing is allowed. 8, all construction work is to be considered adjacent or nearby, is to consider adjacent or nearby structures and the protection and monitoring thereof. I mean, I know you're not driving piles, but still we want to be respectful of everything. And if you think there's going to be something that's going to impact the historic structures nearby, you would need to meet with staff and discuss. 9, all visible exhaust and intake grills and vent caps are to be flush style and painted to match the generalized adjacent exterior material color to be inconspicuous. Where occurring in numbers, these are to be carefully organized in rows and columns so as not to be visually disruptive. 10, all visible plumbing equipment mounted on or extending through exterior walls is to be painted to match the generalized adjacent exterior material color to be inconspicuous unless pointedly decorative. The location of the gas meter is to be carefully thought out and as hidden as possible, with only the first stage regulator on the exterior with the remainder within the building. 11, all visible electrical equipment is to be painted to match the generalized adjacent exterior material color to be inconspicuous unless it is obviously a decorative element. And finally, we are there, number 12. For FDC signage, it is preferable to staff to have the field or body color of the sign match the generalized color of the material on which it is placed, with contrasting reflective letters which match a building trim or accent color. This color scheme must be submitted to and approved by the Fire Marshal Division, which is usually very common. Our staff recommendation is for final approval with board and staff conditions and comments and final review by staff of the 4 permit drawings.
Thank you. Any response?
No, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Board discussion.
A question to you, PP, before we discuss, are we approving at this juncture the paint color locations as well, or is that something that will be reviewed in the mock-up?
Both. You are making an approval today, but they can be adjusted the mock-up, and that adjustment would be the absolute final approval, which does happen relative to available materials or, once you, like we've seen in a recent mock-up, once they painted it, they realized they didn't like it, and so staff told them to paint the alternative.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then last question too, for some of the material call out, is that something that based on the approval here that we're moving forward with, or as it's installed in the mock-up, that there'd be flexibility, if there's a detail that we're not necessarily curious or material that could that be changed at the mock-up level, or is that being approved right now?
It can be changed at the mock-up level, and you would either approve or deny that material at that moment, but you can also, in this moment, condition certain materials you want to see or certain materials you do not want to see.
Yeah.
So I agree with all staff comments and conditions. All of them pretty much about anticipated quality of this construction, constructability and things like that. The only thing I want to emphasize again is the first one is that parapet needs more detail. It just doesn't work right now architecturally. So, and that's stipulated in staff comments, but the previous rendering had more banding and more brickwork. So I think we need to kind of get back to that.
Thank you for that. Do you have anything, Mr. Franklin?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of comments. I'm a little concerned about the lack of information at final to be reviewing. I mean, I think at the section level, I really want to be understanding what materials or, you know, an approved alternate is fine, but just what we're looking at in the details before getting here. I think sometimes leaving those to the mock-up. I understand those constructability questions will come out, but I'd like to understand some of those details a little better now. I'm also a little concerned about the lack of depth in the facade. I think the color scheme is going to be obviously the main thing modulating the different elements that are here. But as I was looking at the sections and kind of the offsets that are creating these banded courses that are critical, I think, to the success of this project, it looks like there's no more than an offset of a brick, you know, or a small brick, you know, so there's not a lot, but there's not details in here that show those. And so I'm a little concerned about what I'm approving at this point to move forward in that project. So I think that's just one other point that I'd have in it. The porch, there's a series of items, which I think we can figure out, but what the louvered screening is, its attachment. I know as we've gotten into other elements, there's a handrail and then an extra handrail above it, how it ties into the bricks. These are all elements that are at the predominant facade of the building, and that I think mechanisms of how they're attached and the specific materials really have a bearing on what we're approving. So, I mean, I have a hard time giving it. I like the renderings. The renderings show, I think, the different elements that are here and are good. But when I look at the details and the materials that are called out, I have a hard time really understanding the specifics at a level to make sure that they're going to execute the renderings, if that makes sense.
It does.
Still final approval to staff, so that will be building permit set, I guess.
But we're giving final board approval and then final.
And then it would still go to staff.
Staff for
review.
for the next final review. I mean, we could reserve it for us if you need to.
Wait, are there two final?
Well, it's the final review of the permit drawings, but if there are things that you condition or said, we can look for them, and if we feel like they haven't met what you are wanting as a condition, then, you know, that would be the community wouldn't automatically just get the permit. So you can condition specific drawings or things you would want to have in the set that would go to staff. I don't know that the board has ever reviewed a permit set.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I didn't, and I didn't know what was
Yeah.
appropriate at each level, you know, what level of documents. I mean,
Review the permit sets, but
and I mean, I see the shadow lines and the elevations that I think help emphasize these elements. My concern is not having a drawing of that corner. I'm like, is that shadow line that's shown in a rendering actually kind of something that's gonna let me see the different elements? And I think this building is nicely detailed. I think it has a level of ornamentation. I think the parapet does need to be adjusted, as Ms. Sobchak said. But there are certain elements that I just want to make sure what we're getting in the detailing are those elements. And
Well,
right now.
You could make sure, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr.
That's
President.
fine.
You could go back, we could go back to the mock-up drawing. And you could condition additional things you want to make sure are in the mock-up. And that could be, because that's the last time the board sees it, is that if there are specific conditions that you want to make sure that the board reviews, the mock-up, and I have no idea. Mr. Davis, do you have any idea what page the mock-up would be on?
39.
Look at that.
BAR 800.
Yes.
It's BAR 800.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's another way that the board looks at it again at the mock-up level. So you could condition different things to be in the mock-up and for them to submit a new mock-up drawing. That the board approves the new mock-up drawing, right? What's gonna be in the mock-up.
The main element that I see that's missing from the mock-up is how the pilasters of the vertical elements meet the base. Right now, we've got how the building meets at the porch,
Yeah.
but there's not the element of how that meets the base. And plan offset of how those elements are working in the sections, I don't see enough offset that looks like it's gonna represent what's in the rendering.
So you could condition that be added to the mock-up.
right, and we will be seeing mock-up kind of drawings again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that will be when we need to see more complete, I guess.
Yeah, because this proffering was so that you guys could comment on what do you want to see in the mock-up. Yeah.
I'm sorry about all the comments. I'm relatively new to this process, so I want to make sure that I'm not over approving something that I'm like, oh wait, whoops, I wish I had seen this element. So thank you.
I would like to point that we had, I mean, quite a few times we reviewed this project, and so far everything was done what we asked for. I guess, change of the material and the hyphens, change of the size of the and shape of the windows. So again, architecturally, it came to the point that nothing else we asked for. As far as the constructability, permit set and things like that. Again, we have one more step, which is step. And final step will be the mock-up. So I think that there. Just to clarify.
Yeah, I would just echo those comments. I think that the project itself has moved forward very nicely, and y'all followed the comments from staff and from the board, and I would be comfortable with the staff recommendation on this for final approval of board and staff. Conditions and comments and final review by staff.
Wait, did you
I'm
just make a
not,
motion?
no, I did not. I did not. I just said that I would be in favor of it, so. I'll entertain a motion. Y'all don't have any more discussion?
Make a motion.
Okay.
For the final approval with board and staff conditions and comments, and final review by staff of permit drawings, including the expansion of the drawings, with details discussed for the mock-up plan.
Do I have a second?
I would second that.
Thank you, Mr. Trantham. So it's final approval with board and staff, conditions and comments, and final review by staff of 4 permit drawings, including adding details for the mock-up.
Adding
panels.
details discussed.
Yeah. All right. Ms. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Subchuck?
Yay.
And I'm also yay in favor. Thank you. All right, we're now gonna move to items number 4. Oh, yeah, here you go. Thank you so much. All right, the next 2 items on the agenda, give y'all just a second to clear out. Yeah. All right, and the crowd gets thinner. All right, items 4 and 5, just a procedural point for the board to understand too. We've decided we're gonna take those both up at the same time. So that's 89 Nassau Street and 91 Nassau Street. So we're going to hear presentations for both, comments for both, and board discussion, but we do need to, as a board, consider those as 2 separate projects and make different motions for each one. Okay. All right. You want to introduce it?
Sure. So the other thing I will add is that items 4 and 5 are listed as 89 and 91 Nassau. They have not been entered into our GIS system with their final address, which will be 89.5 and 91.5. So I just want, for the public record, on the agenda, it says 89 and 91 because that is all that we can put into the system, but we asked the applicant to work with our GIS system to get the 89.5 and 91.5 before it comes back for any future so that we can track it. So 89/89.5 Nassau Street is new construction in the old city, and they're requesting conceptual approval of a new 2-story residential structure with a multi-phase master plan. And they will be presenting the master plan first so that everyone understands the whole before this particular property. So Lawrence is showing the overall location in the city of Charleston, and then we are ready for the applicant presentation.
Thank you, Bill Adrian with Coastal Creek Design, and blessed to be able to be a part of this property. I think the reason is before you, these are relatively small structures, reason before you is because it's part of a much larger complex. And to that, what I will do is I will let PJ kind of give you a site overview, and then I'll come back and discuss the architecture of 89.5 and 91.5.
Thank you.
Good evening, board and community. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you tonight for the 89.5 and 91.5 Nassau Street project, and then the corresponding master site plan. My name is PJ Prowitz with P4 Consulting Group. I'm a local development consulting firm representing Star Gospel Mission tonight.
Can you put the overall site plan up? I think that'll help us. Yes, this right here.
Thank you.
Where there's no that. Oh.
Is that the one you wanted? One before?
Next one.
A little larger will be better.
No.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Joel. And before we get into the overall site layout for that campus, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on the mission itself and how it then ultimately relates to that site plan. Since 1904, Star Gospel Mission has served the Charleston community by providing safe and transitional housing for vulnerable individuals and families. In 1920, the mission moved to its current home at 474 Meeting Street, where it continues its longstanding tradition of offering hope, support, and a Christ-centered environment. Over the years, the campus has grown to better serve men, and now even more recently, women and children, offering not just shelter, but a chance at a new beginning. And as we are all aware, today that mission remains as vital as ever. And in an effort to continue to meet that growing need of transitional housing and to enhance the safety, dignity, and the environment of our campus, we come to the board to ask for several approvals for our proposed projects. Star Gospel's overarching mission for this project is designing and building a project that is providing a dignified and welcome space anchored by faith and attainability. We believe this site layout is essential to allow for campus improvements, expanding our housing capacity, and ultimately increasing our impact on Charleston's most vulnerable. As it specifically relates to the site plan, we felt it was better to show the overall vision for the campus so that the board could better understand how each sub-project ultimately will relate to the master campus. The main building that you're seeing on this campus is the 474 Meeting Street, which is our proposed 474 Meeting Street project, which has not been submitted to BAR. We are actively working to prepare and get that package submitted. But many factors have gone into the site design in meeting the needs of the mission that is serving men, and as I mentioned now, women and children. Some of those needs include dignity. We are trying to provide an inviting campus that welcomes the clients and thus allowing them for a real chance at a new beginning. Thoughtful design and community appeal. We feel the design keeps the look and feel of Nassau Street while keeping the character and integrity of the downtown Charleston neighborhood, but also meeting the needs of the mission. Flexibility. With the needs of the community constantly changing, we feel that this plan allows us to be flexible and pivot if the need arises. And last, but certainly not least, is security. In an effort to provide an overall safe and secure site for our clients, we have provided the following in the design: a central access drive off of Nassau Street, the ability to provide isolated areas of security within the site to meet the specific needs of housing men and women and children, and then a strong connection to the 474 Meeting Street building. So in closing, I will add that we have been working with the BZA on the necessary approvals for tree removals and parking and setback variances, but I'll turn it over to Joel now and he can go into specifics on the building design.
Thank you, PJ, and maybe I'll give this thing a whirl and see if it likes me more than
Mr. Dan.
and apparently.
Yeah. I think the first agenda item broke it.
All right, so I think that I appreciate PJ giving you kind of that overall site concept. If we could go back to that that sheet we were on before. So, no, the next one, the one forward. Third drawing, third sheet. Next, there we go. So what we're gonna be looking at today is this little building here, which is going to be 89.5, and then that one above, which would be 91.5. And so it's important to note that we are maintaining the property lines of those original units that helps with zoning and what we're trying to achieve, but obviously it is part of a much larger complex. Looking at 89, if we would now go maybe to the floor plans, I think that we're looking at 89.5 here. And next one, that's what I'm back up. I guess you can say those are context photos, existing site plan. So we'll go to the next sheet is proposed. You can see the existing small structure proposed. I do understand, I think both of these houses that are at 89 and 91 were relocated to those lots. They weren't original to them, but they're original and historic from other locations being preserved. The house at 91, the existing house is currently under renovation. And we're looking forward to seeing that being completed. So if we can flip through to the next slide. This is existing streetscape photo of what's out there. We are looking at the property that's going to be behind this 2.5 story and behind this little 2-story structure here. Our next slide. And those are just context photos showing you the location of where we're going to be proposing our new structures. And the next one. Okay, here we go. So what we are looking to do is we need on the property, we're trying to create as many units as we can to be able to house these people. And each unit is 320 square feet. So it is not looking at luxury living, but it is looking at accommodating what is necessary. And I think very important when PJ says the dignity and for people to have a place that they can go to, they're comfortable and they feel respected and can rebuild their lives. These units, as compressed as they are at a main building width of only 17.5 feet, you've got this small little living area, an area with the bed, which can have a bunk above it, an area where you can store some clothes, and a small bathroom. And that is it. That is it. So these are again 320 square feet, not looking at luxury. And I think our largest, maybe I shouldn't say, but our largest issue with building behind historic structure, obviously, is supposed to be subordination with height and all of that. And looking at what our program is and what our need is, we're at 17.5 feet, which is pretty narrow. But then we've got the porch and we got a little bump out for some circulation of stairs to get to a second floor. So overall, when you look at our proposed elevations, you'll see that these buildings are slightly visible, slightly larger in width than the historic structures in front. But I don't see how these get compressed any, because we don't have the ability to lengthen to try to fit those directly behind. So if we can go to our next slide. This is just showing you roof plan that's proposed and a little building section, give you different heights, floors, and our next slide. All right, so now we're getting into the proposed elevations. This one here is 4 units, 2 on the first floor, 2 on the second. Simple side porch, get you up and in, and then get into the front, first floor, 2 windows, second side of the floor, 2 windows on the front. On the side, we'll hit that next slide. And then that's obviously rear and on the opposite side there. So if we go to the next, I think we'll get to next slide, please. So here we go. So now, back up. So this is now the proposed streetscape of what we're looking at for 89. So you can see the width of the existing house and then what we're looking to add off the side there. So it is going to be visible. And I think we go back to the site plan at some point and look at what we're dealing with as far as trying to maintain the standards that are in place. And I think the next slides will help to show that these are just, massing models. So you can see what we're proposing in this building here is at least subordinate in height. It is not necessarily in its footprint or its massing because of the 2 units per floor. But we were just asked for your consideration for approval, and certainly we'll take comments and all. I think that's the last slide in our set.
Great, thank you so much. Any questions from the board?
I have a couple, sorry.
Of course you do, it's great. Well, let's understand it.
No, the proposed structure at 89.5 Nassau, is there a reason why it's flipped and doesn't follow the pattern of north-south development or front door entry as the other?
Yeah, if you go to the site plan, I think it was just a proposed, oops, sorry, next slide.
Well, that one hasn't.
No, it does, yeah, so I think it was just a relationship of this entry to that entry and those 2 units. But if, the desire was for that thing to mirror 180 degrees, we are fine.
I didn't know if there was a use or security issue or something for those, the 2 front structures have the entries on the other side. Is there a use or like a particular specific reason?
It was just us, looking at the entries just being on those 2 units across from each other, but certainly have no issue being consistent as those properties go. Second building shows up.
Can I speak to that?
Where you would
Well,
need
if you would, please step up.
I work with the mission. I'm the development officer and one of the pastors on staff. And so to your point, yes, that we were trying to preserve some safety, having everything open into like I'm gonna use the word alleyway, but for lack of a better term, maybe a courtyard or something, to the interior. If we could take 89 and turn it around, we would have, because then it has this courtyard and everything opening in the same direction. And so, yes, you're sensing what we're trying to do by turning that one building inward. It doesn't make for an unsecure property to turn it around the other way, but then we have yet another behind a building, you know what I mean? And so with lighting and security and sidewalks and stuff, so we can work around that, but that was our thinking on that.
Thank you.
Is the parking used by whom?
It's proposed for, I think that the staff in this building.
That's mainly for the staff.
I have a couple of just simple architectural questions too. Are there any accessibility concerns that you would see that might affect the site plan that you proposed today?
No, we maybe let PJ
Yeah,
address.
no, Seaman Whiteside, who's our civil that's working on the master campus is done the survey and done all the layout and grades, and they're working through all those.
Okay.
But as far as the floor plan layout, obviously these small units, there's bathrooms, accessible bathrooms. And so the spaces are not, at this point, are not designed for wheelchair access.
The flood zone?
So
You're in a flood zone?
yeah, so this 89.5 is in flood. This is our flood line coming through here. This is, I think it was AE10, and this is X zone. So the structure up here at 91.5 is not in flood, it's in X zone. 89.5 is in the AE10 because that line cuts through the front curve of the structure.
Okay, that's why you have the crawl space.
That's why that was crawl space. The other one, and that building at 91.5, I was looking at it today with Carol in my office, and I think we can pull that foundation down to help reduce the overall height of that structure compared to the front building because it's not in flood, so we can lower that structure. At 89 will need to be up at the height that it is.
Makes sense.
Luckily, its existing home in front is 2.5 stories, so it's still height-wise larger than one.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Public comment. All right. Hearing none, city staff comments and recommendations, please.
This project involves the construction of 4 new structures across the site, as we've seen on the site plan C4. In prior meeting with city staff, the applicant was requested to outline the phases of the total project to the board prior to describing the specific submittals before the board tonight. And as already noted, item B4 will receive the address 89.5. It's just not currently in the system. City Council passed a resolution on January 24, 2023, establishing the priority status affordable housing program that provides special benefits and advantages during the development review process to residential and mixed-use developments that make certain impactful contributions toward the city's supply of affordable housing. This project comes under the auspices of this program, and I would say you have to register. You just can't claim you're doing it. They are registered. Thus, while in general, the board does not consider cost when deliberating on projects, the BAR must balance the priority status affordable housing program with maintaining quality design for all residents in all types of housing situations. The ordinance states, quote, additional buildings and additions to buildings that are subject to the jurisdiction of the BAR shall be subordinate in height, scale, and mass to the primary building, provided this provision may be waived by the Board of Architectural Review when it deems such appropriate based on architectural merit and context or existing lot conditions. The historic building in front of the proposal is not rated in the architectural inventory and dates from 1852. The applicant's proposal is subordinate in height to the historic structure, but its mass is visible from behind. The architectural direction is modest and in keeping with the Charleston vernacular of the context. Staff encourages, and notice when I say encourage, we're not requiring anything, but the applicant to study if the building could move north with the stairs closer to the lot line so that less of the new construction would be visible from Nassau Street. Staff deem it appropriate to waive subordination in this case for the design shown in this application. We have no staff conditions, and staff recommendation is for conceptual approval with board conditions and comments and staff comments.
Thank you so much. All right, board discussion.
I guess I can kick off on this one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like to congratulate the applicant's mission, and I think what they're trying to do. I don't have an issue with trying to bring density to this lot. Again, not typically within ours, and I'll speak to architecturally very shortly, but with a lot of structures on one site, I think one of the critical things that needs to be carefully analyzed, and I think staff's points get to that, is the site plan. How you move through a building with all of these different entrances. And I can understand the need to maybe go against the traditional Charleston development pattern if for this specific context, there's a reason to address that and hopefully sometimes be able to better navigate a site that has this level of density on it. I think it is, in speaking to the subordinate point, I know that's a part of our ordinance, and there's a lot of ways to be subordinate. You know, it's height, scale, and mass. It's not always just a line directly behind the house. It's not always visible. It's not that. It's what are you speaking to? And I do think these houses are modest when you look at the floor to floor levels, when you look at how they're raised up. And there's a specific, which I can point to, key architectural features that are also emphasizing subordination. And so when you look at 89.5 Nassau Street, the points that I see there is that you've got that large 1.5-story structure in front of you. You all have kept modest 8-foot ceiling height. So even with it coming a little bit proud of the house, which typically in Charleston, you might not be tolerated, it's much lower. You can even see the eave line is addressed between the two of those where it actually runs down, and the proposed eave line is less than that. I think that the way these buildings are kind of offset, I think you try to balance space around each one in order to kind of emphasize that subordinate to for 91.5, looking at the front elevation, that's.
Do we want them to present it before you talk about 91.5?
Oh, I thought we were talking about.
Well, they only presented 89.5.
Well, okay, well then I can speak just to 91.5 then too. One of the things in modesty that I think would be important as this moves forward, especially for 91.5, is the levels of detail that you have control over, kind of looking at how those can resolve and be matched. And those would be things like the eave detail. the window proportion. I don't think that it needs to be a whole infill, but some of those taking cues from the historic structure, I think would be beneficial as well. You know, the 1/1 lights or a departure, and I know that we're gonna be dealing with something that's not gonna be high level, but I think modest can be quite beautiful too, as you know, our warehouse shows. That was a modest structure constructed of well-detailed materials, you know, and as we went inside of it, it was nice. So I do think that would be helpful as this project develops. And I think that's really all of my comments on 89.5.
I just want to point one thing about architecture of the subordinate. It's actually over the years, I think the direction or guidance was to be different. So taking a cue from existing structure with length proportion, maybe actually not or should not be looked at it here, because the structures and design is so close to the existing that it needs to be a little bit different. So that's, to me, that's part of the difference. And you know, I always think it's more modern. The burden is simply the, people say, yeah, that's we always were looking for. Is there any landscape design and plan? Because it's maybe part of it. If you have a landscape, you have to, you can screen the projections of the back. Yeah.
Yes, please, thank you.
I say, you know, obviously, those conceptual, we come back before you certainly provide, some landscape designs and then in our 3D even, you know, if we're planning on a palm tree, whatever tree might be, or if you show something roughly diameter size, that would help to show how that streetscape could be screened additionally, since those units are back as far as they are. I do also appreciate your comment about, differences because they're still close enough to the existing structure that they could almost read as an addition to versus separate structure.
Yeah, I also think that doesn't matter how much you move the structure, it still will be visible from the street. So there needs to be other means to try to screen it. And so other than that, I think I'm done.
Yeah, well, I'll entertain a motion then. Or I'm happy to make one.
I'll make a motion for conceptual approval with preliminary review by board. With board comments, or sorry, with staff comments and board discussion noted.
All right, so it's conceptual approval. Conceptual approval with board conditions and comments and staff comments.
Yes.
Yeah, do it automatically,
Yeah.
go back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a second? Second. Mr. Trantham, how you doing?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown? Yay in favor. Subject.
Yeah, in favor.
And I'm also yay in favor. All right. Thank you.
Right, 91 Nassau Street is the other
Right.
part of this particular project, still new construction, still in the Old City District. And will be called 91.5 once the addressing has been taken care of. So Lawrence, you can look forward to their first slide. Obviously, you don't have to repeat any information that has already been used.
Thank you again. If we can just maybe go to I guess the floor plan, or maybe it might be even our context photos and all might show up first. Site plans. I'm sorry, stay right there. I keep jumping around.
Let's just go in the order of the slides. Yeah.
And so this property was more challenging. The existing house up front was very modest and short in stature and height. We had initially, you know, the goal since we had this, the depth was to look at a similar house that we just looked at for 89.5, do it here and do it 3 stories. That was just way out of context with the overall height of it, with everything around it. So the thought was that we could potentially take this unit, keep it 2-story, but make it 3 units per floor. So the benefit to that is we have the little piazza along the side. That's going to be our access to that second floor units. And so if we can go maybe to that next slide and we'll get to context. So that's just again our existing streetscape of what's there. The next slide should show in some photos. We're now looking at the structure that's going to be behind this house with the multicolored roof. And our next slide, those probably the floor plans. Floor plan wise, not very different here. It's basically just taking the 2 and we pop the second, third unit to it. So we have the same units that we just looked at 89.5 width wise, 2 of them together, and then a third has been added to it. The double piazza allows for these residents to have some outdoor living space and be able to get up to those second floor units. Our next slide, please. So here again is roof plan and then the building section. And as I mentioned, this house is not in flood zone, so we will lower that first floor, that foundation, which will definitely help when you look at our site elevations that show the existing structure and then our proposed. So we'll go to the next slide. There's the proposed front elevation of the side. There's not a whole lot of excitement to the side elevations on these. Are next. Just let you take a look at that. Piazza, those entry doors, and then the next slide. So this is the one that shows it's the amount that it projects past, and so it. Again, we're dealing with 91 Nassau, which is much smaller. And when we lower our proposed building foundation, this bridge will be equal to, I don't know that it will be subordinate to this one, but it would be at least equal to the front building. And then it's for the most part really just the piazza that pushes outside of the footprint of that front house. I think that probably is probably enough there to not answer questions that you already have.
Thank you.
Did you say that this one can be lowered?
It can be, yes, because this one's not in flood zone, it's in the X zone. And so we will be bringing that first floor down, which is what will allow for this ridge to drop. And you know, obviously street perspective from there, you're probably not catching that little 12-inch or so difference in the ridges, but as you're on the site, you certainly would know. And that scale and massing, unfortunately, what we're looking to do is try and get as many units as we can to help people. And so this building certainly is larger in length than this, but if I can at least pull it down by lowering that foundation, I'm starting to move in the right direction.
How far would you want to bring it down? Do you have an idea of what you'd be looking to do?
So I mean, I think that we can take it to at least a foot, potentially 16 inches, probably out of that.
Any other questions? All right, any public comment? Thank you very much. All right, city staff comments and recommendations, please.
Sure. Our first piece of comments are literally the same as the last one, in part because comments will follow individual properties. The only difference here being that this address will become 91.5 Nassau.
Right.
The second page, I won't repeat the ordinance that I just stated. So new information. This historic building in front of the proposal is rated 4 negative in the architectural inventory and dates from 1852. Per definitions in the inventory, a rating of 4 negative represents the lowest level of resources surveyed. These resources are heavily altered from their original form and materials. With further alterations, these resources might lack sufficient integrity to be included, meaning in the inventory. The applicant's proposal is taller in height to the historic structure and the piazza is visible from behind. The architectural direction is modest and in keeping with the Charleston vernacular of the context. Sort of similar to last time, staff encourages the applicant to study if the building could move north against the lot line so that less of the new construction would be visible from Nassau Street. Staff deem it appropriate to waive subordination in this case for the design shown in this application. We have no staff conditions, and our recommendation is conceptual approval with board conditions and comments and staff comments.
Thank you so much. All right, any response?
No, we'll definitely study everything. I won't.
Sure.
Yeah, just.
Sorry, but if we go to the site plan sheets, I think on the encouraging to move. My memory serves me correct that we've got this house at the right side setback line. Oops, sorry. Forward, one more, then one more, two more. The other direction. And the next one. And so we had positioned this house at this 3-foot side setback line because of these adjacent properties here that we don't have control over those. We have control over this over here, which is why we allowed for that piazza to move left, and we did receive zoning approval for that to extend into that side setback. So,
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate it. All right, full discussion.
I think quick question, that piazza, I understand what you said, that maybe residents want to have a little bit of the outdoor space. In the same time, in order of the visibility and from the street, what you see pretty much totally that piazza. If you change the stair to the scissor stair in the end, you can reduce the width of the piazza, and that helps to stagger that visibility, I think. But that's a programming. And the one thing I wanted to mention, I keep looking at the parking spots and sizes of these bedrooms. The car is parking there and then the bedroom, that's about it. It's amazing, but obviously you cannot reduce the size of the building anymore. So it is what it is. It's just, I think if you work with the piazza.
definitely study the stairs.
Yeah.
And from a board perspective too, we deal with this a lot in our work here, that 3 feet is a critical cutoff line. Beyond 3 feet, you're not allowed to have windows.
Right.
And so you're still fire rating at 3 feet on an exterior wall. And so it really is as close as it can be and still allow for light and those spaces to be habitable. So I think they have pushed it as far as it can go.
All right, thank y'all. A motion?
Well, I
Go
did,
ahead.
I did have a couple of comments too that sorry. I think when you question whether or not where to lower it to, I think that there's 2 thresholds. One that is a step above so that you don't necessarily need the railings. You don't need the mass towards that side so that as someone comes up and goes in, I think that's one threshold. And then the next one is, a couple of steps up, So I think those are 2 different areas that you can study as you look to bring that back, and I think would be beneficial. I think one thing that's specific about this, and again, just a subordination, is that the historic, for negative, has an piazza and then it has infill at the end of the piazza. So the only element that is sticking proud is the piazza. And that's an open element currently. And I think that's a benefit in the design. And I think something that you've done to address this specifically subordinate issue. And so lowering the structure, I think will help as much as it can, but I feel like you've done as much as you can do. And do that. And I would echo again that next thing, site plan is going to be critical, really understanding how these spaces connect. You've got a lot going on in that area. It'd be important for us to see that at a resolution.
Thank you for those comments. Those are great. With that being said,
At least related to the site plan, if there is an opportunity to look at 8.5 with the typical cadence of, the front, or excuse me, the entrance on the north side or the south, whichever side it is, the same side as the historic front, that would be appreciated. And a larger site plan to understand the renderings of how things sit related to the parking and the street.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. At this point, I will entertain a motion, if y'all so desire.
Go ahead.
Oh, sure, I'll make one. Conceptual approval with board conditions and comments and staff comments. Is there a second?
Yeah, I second.
Okay. Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Chuck? I'm also yay in favor. Motion passes. Thank you all. Yes, sir. Thank you all for being here for so long. All right, we've got others that are still on the agenda though.
Mr. Chair, staff would like to.
Yes, we're gonna take a 5-minute break. All right. All right, we're back.
Yes, we are.
Yep. We unmuted. We're officially back. All right. That was introduction.
Oh, sorry, I forgot this was my time.
Yeah.
Agenda item number 6, 84 Berry Street, new construction in the Old City District. They are requesting a revision to final approval for a 1-story reduction in building height. Lawrence will show us the location. And then we will be ready for applicant presentation.
All right, thank you. So it's unusual. This is not something that we typically do. You never have to go down, you have to go up. Through some unfortunate circumstances with grants not coming through like we thought they were, like we were assured that they were, and it has to do with political situations we're dealing with in our country right now. We had to take the money out of the building, and through some counsel with our client, we talked through what the process would be like to do that. And instead of doing what you might do, try to take some of the architecture out of the building, we decided to take a floor out. So the details stayed the same, the architecture stayed the same. And just so you know, we actually had already pulled the permit and started foundation work. So this project was under construction when we had this realization of we got to do something. So we took the 4th floor out and basically took the 5th floor, sandwiched it down the 3rd floor. If you'll go to sheet 27. By it. There, that's it. That was before.
Yeah.
And if you'll toggle back to 26, that's after. So I can tell you at our last meeting, the only comments we got from Historic Charleston Preservation was, can we take a floor off? We met with Historic Charleston Preservation and they're so excited. So I sent you a letter. That's where we are. So.
Thank you. Any questions?
The only question is the siding hatch direction of the cementitious siding changed between existing and proposed. Is that a rendering difference or is that intentional? One is horizontal, one's vertical.
I didn't introduce myself. David Burke, LS3P.
Thomas Jasper, LS3P. Yes, that was a change that did occur. So we presented this for preliminary approval back in January. And so over the refining of the design and our staff approvals, we did make some small revisions to the facades. And that was one of those to catch, mainly because of constructability, with dealing with water infiltration of the siding and so forth. So in order to drain behind that siding, it was just easier to go to a horizontal siding.
And there was additional glazing added to the south side of the building towards the current structure.
On which part?
On the south side, looks like it went from.
You have a page number?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 16.
I think that was a request by staff in the last submission. So we had removed a vertical set of windows above the bridge, and so the staff had requested.
Yep, that was a, no, yep, that was a staff request.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you all. Any public comment? We got the letters. All right, city staff comments and recommendations, please.
The applicant received preliminary approval with final review by staff on January 10th and final approval by staff on August 29th of this year. Staff met with the applicant prior to the submittal and sympathized with the unexpected financial situation that has impacted the design. While removing an entire floor from a design would often negatively impact the proposal, in this case, the proportions of the design work well and staff support this major change. Staff also support minor changes reflected in the submittal, for example, the switch of planter boxes from a combination of metal and brick to all brick. Staff conditions, any additional future changes to the design must be reviewed by the BAR, and staff recommendation is for approval of revision to final approval with any previous conditions, right, that staff had made, and final review by staff before permit drawings.
All right, thank you so much. Any response?
other than to say I spoke to Ken Granada about this because of the unusual nature of it. And he said, just send through whatever he's approved with bubbles. So we're gonna bubble the set to show what changed.
Thank you. All right, board discussion. All right, I'll take a motion.
Overpricing the foundation now, right?
Luckily, it was test piles, so we were able to intervene before we got too far.
I'll make them, go ahead.
I just will make a motion, let's see, what is that? Approval, revision to final approval with any previous conditions and final approval by staff of for permit drawings. Really.
Understood. And so it's approval of revision to final approval with any previous conditions and final review by staff of the 4 permanent drawings. Is there a second?
Second that.
All right, Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Sobchak?
Yeah.
I'm also yay in favor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for waiting.
Yes.
Yes, thanks for bringing the visuals.
Yeah.
Appreciate seeing the model.
Yeah.
Each other's to do
Mhm.
this. Good.
We may hire you all to do our next BA at our university.
You'll have to learn.
Does make it easier. All right. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, that would be great, actually. Thank you.
I'm good.
Thank you.
All right, 1 Wilson Street.
1 Wilson Street is a not rated property from 1938 to 1941 in the Old and Historic District. And they are requesting conceptual approval of exterior alterations and repairs within the Robert Mills Manor housing complex. Lawrence is going to show us the site area. And then we will be ready for Ms. Thomas to do the applicant presentation.
Where is this supposed to come?
It's not working tonight. We
Okay.
figured that
I
out in
wasn't
some of the
sure.
earlier ones. So you can just tell Lawrence when you want to move forward.
All right, well, good evening. My name is Chelsea Thomas and I represent Mosley Architects. I am here today on behalf of the City of Charleston Housing Authority for conceptual review of the Robert Mills Manor renovation project. This project involves a comprehensive renovation of the existing public housing complex located in the Old and Historic District in Charleston. And our goal is to receive your conceptual approval today in advance of this vital renovation. Lawrence, could you please just flip through some of the historic slides? I'll just quickly say that Robert Mills Manor is a property of significant local history. It is on the National Register of Historic Places. It is a generally intact public housing complex that retains a high degree of integrity. The proposed renovation is committed to the preservation of the historic character while implementing necessary modern improvements to ensure the longevity and quality of life for residents. The complex is situated within several city blocks, surrounded by Smith, Bufane, Magazine, and Logan, with Cromwell Alley running through the interior. And I think you're already flipping through our photos of all these buildings. There are 30 buildings on this site, so there are a lot of slides. So thanks for hanging in there with me. The current photos illustrate the existing streetscape and condition of the residential buildings. And a key driver for this renovation is the extent of deterioration in the aging building materials. Addressing this deterioration is a primary focus of the proposed scope of work. Okay, Lawrence, when we get to the demolition scope, we can stop there, please. I should mention while we look through these photos, you'll see 3 antebellum buildings that are part of this complex that were incorporated in the extension of when the, sorry, this was built 2 phases. So in like late thirties and then early forties, and in the extension, they incorporated 3 antebellum buildings and converted them into flats. We'll get to the scope for those later on. So most of this renovation is about, you know, maintaining all of the existing materials that were original and repairing those, as opposed to, you know, there's no additions, no demolition here, other than the removal of materials to replace them in kind for the most part. Lawrence, could you please flip to the next one? Actually, after the site plans, these are demolition site plans. Okay, perfect, thank you. So for the circa 1940s buildings, the scope of removal is the non-original windows and doors, the attic louvers. We are doing a pretty comprehensive gut rehab of the interiors. They are in dire straits. We are removing non-original stair handrails, MEP equipment such as the condensing units, which are mounted on pads, water heaters, which are actually mounted on the backs of the buildings. They're wall mounted on the exteriors. We are going to remove the wood fencing that is screening the mechanical equipment currently, because it is in rough shape as well. And we are removing and replacing the electrical meters. The site, we're removing select sidewalk and pavement in order to provide accessibility improvements for the most part. We list the ramps that are being removed on the buildings that have accessible units, so that we can rebuild those to meet current standards. And Lauren, I think you can just flip through all of these plans and elevations that show the removal scope and get to the proposed scope, please. Yep. The windows were replaced, I think. We have records of the replacement of all of these windows. They're in bad shape. They are wood single divided light windows. We plan to put those back. Single pane divided light windows. And the doors, the current entry doors are like a 6-panel metal door. So that's what we will be removing. Okay, so this is the proposed site plan. We can skim through this as well and get to our bulleted scope of work list. Okay, this one's a little harder to read because there's so much, but we didn't want to leave anything out. So building exteriors in general, we are replacing exterior doors and windows. We are repairing or replacing screen doors in kind. We are replacing louvers in kind. We are so we have a big roof scope on this. We're going to remove all the clay tile, repair the deck, put new underlayment down, flashing, etc., and then put those clay tiles back on. This housing authority did not want to spend this much money on interior renovations and have a leaky roof. And even though they put millions of dollars into that roof in the last several years, they went ahead and put this in the scope. So there's a lot of repair items on there. So we did survey every single building, and the elevations that you saw in the package had keynoted any damage that we had seen in our surveys, and so those were specifically noted. We will be replacing crawl space access grills in kind, cleaning the facades, porches, and ramps, repairing and painting wood fascia, trim, framing, anything that would have been previously painted, repairing and replacing metal gutters and downspouts. So essentially, we're just repairing everything that we haven't already said we're replacing. One thing I wanted to point out specifically is that we are As a part of the modernization of these interiors, we are adding laundry closets to these units, and we are adding bathroom exhaust fans, which puts us in the predicament of having to add a exhaust vent for each unit for both the dryer and the bathroom exhaust. So in order to minimize the impact on the facade, we have settled on a brick vent, which minimally impacts the removal of brick and is flush with the brick itself. And the dryers, we cannot use that same vent, unfortunately. So we picked something that was, you know, minimally protruding from the brick, and plan to put, you know, make both of those vents match the brick facade in color. And then later on, you will see a picture of that, of a similar product at least. We also are in the floodplain, so when we replace the HVAC systems outside and the water heaters and the condensing units, we are going to we discussed this with planning and staff and Ken Granato on site. And we are going to be over that 50% substantial improvement over the appraised value, which kicks us into a Board of Appeals for that. But we are raising things up to a foot above grade, and so mechanical condensing units will be on a 12-inch pad, and the water heaters will all be up to 6 feet, and they will be screened with fencing so that they're consistent across the property. And that's pretty much how they already are with the, you know, at least the water heaters, they are all kind of at that height now. The condensing units are just sitting on a typical 4-inch pad, so they will be a little taller. They will not go above the sill of the windows. We don't want those to block anybody's, you know, sight lines outside of their windows. I think we can flip through the rest of those, Lawrence. I hope I'm not going through this too fast. We did receive conditional approval for from SHPO for historic tax credits. So you may have saw on that slide with their comments for our conditional approval on this scope. And these are the plans and elevations that show the new unit plans and proposed work to the elevations. The antebellum buildings, I want to specifically note that it is a conservative repair in kind effort to restore the existing structure. On the exterior, the scope includes repair and painting of existing windows, doors, louvers, slate roofing, stucco facade, wood trim. On the interior, it is more of a preservation, repair, and refinishing of historic elements. We are not doing quite as much demo, not nearly as much demo as we are on the or removal on the 1940s buildings. We are, you know, proposing currently to add one exhaust fan vent and one dryer vent per dwelling unit at those antebellum units. And we are making every effort to put those vents on the, you know, non-primary facades. Sometimes that is not, we're not able to do that. But that is, you know, that was always our goal, and we've spent hours with the engineers trying to work through that point structure, et cetera. I think that we are close to the end of this.
Yeah, there's only one more slide.
Yeah, so with that, I just wanted to say thank you. We're requesting, again, our large conceptual approval, and I appreciate your time and open to questions.
Thank you very much. A lot of stuff and very efficient, so we certainly appreciate it. Question from the board.
The only vents and exhausts for all of the other brick masonry buildings would also be on the non-primary side, I would suspect.
As much as possible, like meaning some buildings don't actually face the street. Some buildings have entries that face a courtyard on one side and the street on the other side. Those are the primary entrances for the units. And in those cases, we're still trying to get them to the courtyard side, but there are just some places that are quite impossible to work out.
it's more of a modernist building site plan than a traditional urban one, so it's not possible to have it all be backs because the way it's laid out.
And then the ADA accessibility on a 20.1. All of those units are accessible, and that's where the addition of all the extra ramps will be.
Yes, there's 3 buildings where the first floor, it's a stacked configuration where the first floor is flats and the upper floors are like a 2-story townhouse. So not every door needs a ramp. We're actually, they were all small units, and we're trying to provide some larger, like 2 and 3 bedroom accessible units on the site to mimic the range of the unit types that we have on the site. So we actually reduced our unit count by 4 with this project, and therefore we didn't need all the ramps that had been there previously. And they were all sort of just felt like there wasn't much thought into how they were laid out before. So we are trying to do our best to clean that up with the grades and everything we're working with out there.
Yeah, but there's additional ramps down in the proposal, right? So I'm seeing 3 from 125 Logan and then increase to 4. And then the same with 5 Wilson. It was 2, and now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, I'm not sure.
Okay.
We're just providing 1 ramp for each accessible unit. And I guess we could flip to that plan if you'd like to talk through that some, but.
It's the very last 25.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just didn't know if there was another configuration that didn't have so many ramps associated with the facade.
The last slide.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, so they're rendering like the perspective view of those.
Yeah.
Joel, which one did you say it was?
20.1. It's the very last slide. I think one more down. Yeah, there it is.
Oh, these are. Okay.
Just
I
a
see what you're
significant
saying.
increase.
Yeah, I don't think there's a way to combine these 2 doors, like, if you've got 2 doors paired, one goes up and then one is a flat. So in those cases, you can't really make the one above the first floor accessible. So I don't think there's a way to combine the ramps just off at the top of my head to make less, and nobody hates all of those ramps more than me. But yeah, we did make an effort to try and make them kind of similar in configuration and have some kind of repetition and.
What are the elevations of the first floor over the grade?
They vary per building. I mean, it's usually, I want to say it can be anywhere from like 8 to maybe 30 inches above grade typically.
So you look pretty long.
Yeah, these buildings aren't quite, they're not 30 inches above
But
grade.
it looks pretty tall,
Yeah.
and the ramps are really short. I guess we will see it in preliminary what you do, but I have a question about water heaters. They are on exterior.
Yes, they are.
And they are exterior rated.
Yes. They're gas fired instantaneous water heaters.
You don't have any protection like with any type of roof or whatever.
No.
Okay.
No, it's their existing condition, we're replacing them in kind. The housing authority has moved that direction. I'm not exactly sure why they started to do that, but I can guess that these units are so tight that every little bit of space counts for and finding closets for this stuff is.
No room on the attic, huh?
Oh, yeah, we actually moved the HVAC into the attics, so that we could make space for our laundry closet. Because there wasn't room for both.
I don't remember if you said, do you screen those units, I mean, the water heaters, or you don't?
Yes, Lawrence, I don't know if you could flip back to some of the photos of those screens are visible. I know they're early. Okay, that might take 10 minutes. They are currently screened and we plan to basically replace the fencing in kind. And we want to make sure that we're, simplifying that screening as much as we can and still screening all of
They're
it.
tamper proof too, right?
Sorry?
Well, anyone can get to this.
Sure, yeah. They've not indicated that they have a lot of problems with tampering or, stolen equipment in this neighborhood.
Well, you can change them.
Oh,
Temperature.
Messing with your neighbors.
Coincidentally, they are my neighbors. And this is, I really want to focus on accessibility because I think it's important. But when there's an opportunity to revise the structures to make it more appealing, I think we should take advantage of the opportunity. Is looking over there at 125 Logan and scrolling down Logan. It leaves a lot to be desired in that sense, but I mean that can be discussed later. And I'll have more questions.
Okay. Thank you for your time. All right, any public comment? All right, city staff, comments and recommendations, please.
I'm gonna go ahead. It may take him a while to catch up.
Fair enough.
Robert Mills Manor is a public housing complex listed on the National Register for Historic Places. Many of the units are built of bricks salvaged from earlier buildings on the site. It is listed as an example of the application of the social ideas and planning standards of federal public housing at the local level, and as the first public housing complex designed, constructed, and managed by the Housing Authority of the City of Charleston. While the Brockington survey did not rate much of the housing complex, which is why on the agenda it's listed as not rated, 2 properties within are rated. 59 Bufane is a category 1 and 63 Bufane is a category 2 building, hence why it has to come forward. The applicant, I think, did a good job both within the application, but also in her presentation of listing the myriad of things that are either being repaired and or replaced. So a lot of this is repair in kind or replace in kind with updated mechanicals, et cetera. Based on site visits, staff agree that these buildings need extensive repair and renovation. Multiple departments of city staff also met with the applicant regarding the MEP scope relative to FEMA requirements and staff conditions, and the applicant's submittal reflects that discussion and agreement. I'm happy to entertain questions that you all need, but there was a meeting of many different divisions so that they didn't have to go as high as technically required, which would have been 7 feet. And we were able to convince folks that a foot should be sufficient. Applicant has conditional approval from SHPO for this submittal. So for staff conditions, condensing units shall be installed on concrete pads no taller than 1 foot, with the top of units no taller than windowsills. 2, in-kind replacement of wall-mounted water heaters shall be mounted at a consistent height and attached to the wall through mortar joints. And again, they already exist. This is just an updating of the equipment. Fan exhaust and dryer vents shall minimize disturbance of the historic brick, and color should match the generalized brick color. And 4, please provide window and door specifications as well as roof material samples at the next level of review. Staff recommendation is for conceptual approval with board and staff conditions and comments.
Thank you. Any response from the applicant to anything? I think you addressed our questions there. I appreciate it. All right, board discussion, please.
I think staff's conditions are fairly comprehensive that's here. I'm glad to hear that within the scope, looking to replace a lot of the windows in kind is a benefit to me. And then especially looking towards the repair nature at the rated structures is critical. So I think those two elements move forward. I echo, and I think kind of looking at the site plan, ways to be able to differentiate the entry to units, but maybe simplify the amount of runs that are necessary, or if they are, minimize their visual impact on the elevations. Like, does everyone need to have a full guard? You know, what are the elements you can do and how can you gang them together? I think would be beneficial study. And is there any site manipulation that might be able to help minimize some of that as well? Because 30 inches to make up is a lot for an individual ramp to all of these different units. That's a lot of ramp. But I think that's predominantly, I do echo Ms. Subject's comment that if they weren't already on the outside, I would not like the hot water heaters on the outside, but given that they're there, I don't know that. I think that might be part of what is impacting.
Is there a nine? The water heaters are a nine or because they're wall mounted? What is it?
Can you repeat that question?
Is it a Renai water heater or like a
The existing
tankless?
one.
It is the existing, I don't know what brand they are, but they are an gas powered instantaneous water heater. And that's like what we were putting back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they look older. That's why I don't, who knows what is there existing brand wise.
That's one of the things that probably will be interesting to see how they will manage it because they're pretty big, right?
Yeah, those are
The ones that are there,
essentially nice.
they're very big.
As far as the renting, I'm just thinking, if there's enough area up front, and can you manage with landscaping levels rather than just real ramps? I don't know. It's a possibility. It's just adding money, but creating the terraces, could be interesting for people too. But anyway, that will be, I guess, another area which we will be zooming on in our review, I think.
All right, sounds good. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for conceptual approval with staff conditions and board comments.
All right, sounds good. Conceptual approval of board and staff conditions and board, conditions and comments.
Staff conditions and
Yeah,
board comments.
with staff conditions and board comments, that's what I
Yeah.
have Mr. Trantham saying.
Yes,
And I'll second that.
thank you. Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Subchuck? I'm also yay in favor.
EDS
Say again?
present.
Yeah, very much so. All right. Item number 8, 141 Meeting Street.
141 Meeting Street is a category 1 building dating from 1876, 1878 in the Olden Historic District, and they are requesting a revision to final approval of exterior renovations. Lawrence is gonna show us the location. And then I'm sure we will be ready for Mr. Schmidt to give us a succinct presentation. Scope, so I think you can do it.
All right.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Okay, the project as it was all about the length, and there was so much time and attention to that. Two things got by us. We never got focused on the front of the building. And we are now, because we're going to go into phase 2. Phase 1 is about to be complete. And we also didn't have enough research, and we've kind of exhausted our research on what the front doors were. They clearly were not what is there today. That's one of the items we're doing. The other is a discovery. When we did demolition within the building, there was 3 stories worth of vaults stacked on top of each other. That's where all of our money went when it was SCE&G. And when we removed the vaults, we found out that what we were seeing on the outside wasn't actually what was original in the building. So we want to make a modification of that. It's pretty minor, it's in the back. It's category 1, so I think we could have done this as staff, but we could. So right in the back, let's do the one on the bottom right-hand corner first. I'm sorry, left-hand corner. See the four little squares? They are little vent grills. And those vent grills backed up to the vaults for whatever reason. And so we made the misassumption that there were two windowsills down there. We assumed that they took out the two large type windows and put those little grills in there. And we said, let's fix that. So we fixed it in the last meeting, only to find out that the reason there's four grills is because that portion of the building, they made a little mezzanine loft. And the grills, there's two grills in each loft. While we're looking at it from the inside, we can see, we know exactly the size of the windows, what they were doing. And we want to put back the two windows to the proper size as a 6/6. On the bottom level, I'd like to keep the grills on the top level because they are this little mezzanine loft. It's not habitable. It's only 6'9". And I think it's just interesting, actually more interesting to keep them and make people wonder because they're clearly grills. So what we'll do is just put glass block behind it. That's the revision we were going to do on the south. Today, they've already started planting the trees. We're never even going to see this thing because the landscape, they came in with full 30-foot trees since vegetation was done. The front door, the reason we're got the little picture over to the top right, just to show you how badly that was done. Probably in the 50s or 60s, we cannot find any photos go back far enough to see what the doors were before they made the alteration. The whole front had been changed when an update was done. In other words, they got rid of the fan light over the door, and put in a solid pane glass. It will be the solid pane glass. The sash is actually there. It's behind that piece of tin that's covering it. So we'll leave that. What they did typically in all of Charleston is they took out the buttons on the two side windows and put in single pane so they could write a C and G or whatever on it in gold leaf. We're not offering to change that either. Again, we don't have a historic precedent to prove that they weren't like this, but I would put my money on it. But when it comes to the front door, it's just abominable and it's rotten. And what we had them do is since we can't find photographs, we can't find drawings, we had them pull the threshold, we had them look at the door frames for the hinge marks it had to be in a pair of doors. So what we've done is we've detailed a pair of doors that were very appropriate to a period of 1870 when this building was done. Because there's no marks for us to trace. Now, I'm very comfortable with what we're presenting. At the same time, we haven't even started the phase 2 drawings, so there's still more time. So I don't mind coming back with a revision of a final on a final. If for some reason we turn up something different, but our speculation is that we won't turn up anything different. There should be a detailed drawing of that as follows. You can, that's what I was looking for. On the left-hand side there, just the detailing of the door. I've been doing this for 40-something years, and anytime I get a building about this period, that's pretty much the way the millwork people were doing it. Kind of a raised pattern there with a raised panel door, but they would not tuck it in. They would add a exterior bulbous piece of trim to accent it. And I think it's very elegant for this particular situation. So that's
all right. Thank you so much. Any questions from the board? Nope. All right. Any public? Thank you very much. Any public comment? We're getting thinner in here. Not seeing any. All right. City staff comments and recommendations, please.
Staff are comfortable with proposed changes to fenestration in the main door based on the preview meeting with the applicant before this application. We have no conditions for this revision, and our recommendation is approval of revision to final approval with any previous conditions and final review by staff of 4 permit revised drawings.
Thank you so much. Any response? So none. All right. Thank you.
I will motion for approval of revision to final approval with any previous conditions and final review by staff for permit revised drawings.
Good door.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, Mr. Trantham seconds. How do you vote, Mr. Trantham?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Sokol?
Yeah.
I'm also yay in favor. It's as written. Thank you.
All over the place, man.
All right, appreciate it. All right, we're moving on. Number 9, 677 King Street.
677 King Street is not rated circa 2022, the Olden Historic District, and they are requesting approval of a directory sign. Lawrence will show us the location and we'll be ready for applicant presentation.
Evening, everybody. Appreciate your time. Lawrence, just the next one, I think. So this is the revised version from the last meeting. We've scaled it down significantly. I think the only thing I wanted to mention is we did play with moving the card reader, which is the restriction over here, to bring it down further, but we actually felt like we've got enough space. We measured it out where I can make the head of this line up with the top of the door, and we thought that that was better touch. So I'd like to leave the card reader where it is today. Have a sign up. And with that, I'll back over to you.
Thank you very much. Questions from the board?
So we are not reviewing option 1 and option 2. We're only reviewing option 2.
That is my understanding. We're
Right, sorry,
reviewing
the
this.
submittal wasn't clear. The first one was the one that you guys deferred.
Yeah, the first one is what you deferred previously. So that
Right,
was
okay,
previous.
Got it.
This is proposed.
Beautiful, thank you.
No more options. This.
Yeah, no option. I don't want any options.
We were speaking, you were listening, right?
Got it.
Okay.
Oh, move to for approval.
Well, I gotta get some comments and recommendations from staff first. Yeah.
We haven't done that yet.
The surrounding city
We gotta do the
limits.
decisions of the cost.
All right.
Yeah, Steve,
City staff comments, recommendations, please.
Steve's not making a public comment.
I love it.
I'll skip the first one, which is more just a recap of the ordinance from before. The second one, that the proposed directory sign was deferred by the board at the September 10th meeting of this year. Both staff and board agreed that a directory sign could be appropriate for this building and its context. Board and staff comments requested that the sign be reduced in size, lowered to a more pedestrian-friendly height, and designed with a uniform color palette and font without individual logos. The applicant has met board conditions. The sign has been reduced from 20 square feet to 11, thus lowering its placement height. Logos have been removed, and all businesses now share the same color and font. Staff recommendation is for approval with board conditions and comments and staff comments with typical staff review of for permit revised sign submittal drawings.
Thank you so much. Any response?
Sounds great.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. It's now your time. You want to read it?
Yeah.
Please do.
Approval is board conditions and comments and staff comments with typical staff review of for permit revised sign submittal drawings.
Thank you so much. You got that one.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Trantham, how you doing?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Sokol?
Yeah, in favor.
I'm also yay in favor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Two. Last but least, 165, item number 10.
Last and least.
165 Meeting Street is new construction in the Old Historic District, requesting approval of construction fence signing. Lawrence is going to remind us of the location, and then we will be ready for applicant presentation.
Finally to the meat of the agenda. My name is Steve Ramos, I'm an architect, and I'm representing the Four Seasons development team. Construction on this very exciting project is going to start later this month with demolition. And then they'll move on to new construction. It's likely to take anywhere between 3 and 4 years to complete if we're lucky. So it's a significant amount of time and it's a significantly sized project. And so what we're presenting, I'm sharing tonight is effectively screening that's going to go on the fencing around the property, which is the equivalent of almost a city block in some instances. You'll scroll to the site plan. So just a reminder, so we're gonna have a significant frontage along Meeting Street, it's 245 feet. 378 feet along Hurlbeck, and then there's what we call the Western Alley, which is another 383 feet. These magenta areas represent where there's gates, so it's a lot of linear footage. Next slide. And there's basically a pattern. It goes A, B, C, D. So it's effectively a black screen. There is some Four Seasons branding on it, but I think it's somewhat minimal and it's actually quite elegant. If you go to the next slide.
Only 5 feet tall?
It should be.
I think it's.
Yes, so I think I think the fence is a little bit more than 5, but the mesh screen is 5 feet.
There's a construction barricade underneath it that sets it up.
Yeah. So it's basically, it's on, like you said, barricades or a chain link fence is what it gets installed on. So this is just what it looks like in large Four Seasons, Charleston. That's panel A. Next. Panel B. Next. C. And then the next one is D. And so I quite frankly, I've never presented anything like this. The signage code has always been a little confusing to me, but I reached out to Brad. I said, hey, we've got this pretty significant fence screen we want to do, and it's technically signage. What do we do? And he said, well, we don't really have something at staff level that we can approve for this. It's not really covered, and I think quite frankly, most people just kind of do it or sort of shame on me. But I think this is a good solution. I live next to a really big construction project on King Street that doesn't have any screening. It looks really bad, and so I think this is a suitable solution, and so I'm here to ask for approval from you all tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, another point.
Well.
Why are we reviewing this?
Because staff can't, there's certain things that are in our ordinance or policies that if we can't review it, it has to go to the board at a minimum to set a precedent, so then in the future, staff can follow board precedent. If
Okay,
it's not in policy or ordinance, and we've never had a precedent, then staff can't just willy-nilly set precedent.
well, and I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you, because that's for construction projects, I find that this is pretty standard across the city. And it's temporary. And we've never had to review it before. And
People
but
haven't
that
asked.
might have been because there hasn't been anyone that asked.
Yes,
Correct.
correct.
Thanks a lot,
I'm gonna
Steve.
try to be a fire.
Yeah.
So Mr. Brown, we are asking you to set precedent, whatever it is, that in the
Right, that's
future,
right.
staff can do these reviews.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant?
Did you say what material of this thing?
It's a PVC mesh is what it is.
Is it flipping? Is,
Well, it does allow for air to go through, but it's as long as it's attached properly, it should not flip. So it'll be attached basically on the corners so that it doesn't move, but
it's just often enough, they fall off or get, cut or whatever, so.
Well, the good news is it's got their logo on it, so they're not gonna like that.
Well, no,
It reflects us poorly.
Should we hear staff's comments before,
Yeah.
or do we need to get into board discussion? I don't know.
Well, we're out of order, so let's unless there are any other questions, I think that's where we were. She was asking some questions on that, so. Any other questions of the applicant? All right. Seeing no public, assuming no public comment. City staff comment and recommendations, please.
Sure, and the first couple of pages that are in this were what is in the ordinance for the public record and for board prep prior to this. I'm not gonna read these, but if somebody has a question, we can refer back to them during discussion.
Thank you.
So if we can move forward, I'll let you know when to stop. Another one?
We'll incorporate
more.
all those comments.
Yeah, all of this will be in the meeting minutes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll stop here for a second. So while not an official policy, the BAR has usually not permitted signage on fences in the past. Based on the clauses and statements outlined in Article 4, which is all the previous pages, of the zoning ordinance and the BAR signage policy statements, temporary real estate advertisements displayed on construction fencing for longer than 30 days are not explicitly identified as an allowable signage type. Although the board typically approves signage for wayfinding rather than advertising, staff finds that the proposed signage package helps screen construction areas in a visually appealing way, while also offering the public a preview of upcoming developments. That said, this can be accomplished without including extraneous information, which is currently shown on panels B and D. As presented, those panels appear to function more as advertising than as wayfinding or informational signage. So staff recommendation is for approval with board and staff conditions and comments. We obviously made a comment, which you can adopt or not adopt, with typical staff review of for permit revised signage submittal drawing. So in other words, whatever happens tonight, then the applicant would provide an official permit, which then would be reviewed at staff.
And can we go back and see B and D?
Let's see.
The website.
Okay, and then what was D? Okay. All right, any response?
Sure. There was a question about flapping in the wind, and I'll just say that, this client has high expectations for the visual appearance of this site. And then in regards to the staff comments, it's because there's so much of it, there's a desire to put something on it. And so, for example, panel D, of course, I would say it doesn't advertise, nor does it provide wayfinding, but it provides a nice saying that I don't think is a detraction. And it's just an understated message that I think will look fine. And so we certainly would like to keep it. But I understand your comment.
Did not we see a bunch of these fences with actually tragic images?
I'm thinking of one on King Street.
And you know what is, I think what is nice about it is it's kind of like temporarily murals coming through and people enjoy. So I don't know if it's all black is fine, but rather than website, maybe perspective or enlarged detail or something. You have so much on those buildings to show. Could be nice anticipation. I don't know. It's just me talking.
Details of the metalwork in the one part of it, the green
Yeah.
metalwork, just that as a decorative design. could be
I
nice.
mean, it's like you said, 300 feet is all the, it could be nice. Not many people walking that way, but Meeting Street is really nice to see some.
I'll just make a comment on the website on there. I'm actually in favor of it. I think it draws attention to it and would let people, come and see what this project is. So it doesn't, I know it's a slippery slope with advertising and all that sort of stuff, but for me, given the what I feel to be very, very tasteful in what they've done and pretty minimal, I'm fine with all of it, including B and D.
But then again, can we ask for animation a bit more on those? Meaning,
I'm not opposed to more. That's it just hasn't been presented.
So I think about what the college has up right now, and it's photos of students interacting on campus. And then other panels show the renderings of the new project. And it has the college's branding. The branding doesn't bother me. The city of legacy and home distinction doesn't bother me. When I look at something like what the college has done and what um, other developers have done in town, I'm not sure if there's necessarily a selling component, right? So which would basically be the website. I think more than anything, someone is going to go up and see that it's Four Seasons and be so excited and say, and Google Four Seasons Charleston. So I don't know if you necessarily, just the fact that you have the Four Seasons logo on there is nearly branding and selling enough. But I don't really have a compelling reason to shun that either. I don't know.
The specifics of how these panels are installed, that it's not one long continuous panel, it's actually a broken up series of panels, I think is beneficial. You know, as we look at these things moving forward, I think it'll help with the flapping in the wind as well as the elements that are there. Maybe even mid-span supported or something. So I think the details of how this is put in, I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming before the board to ask about it. I agree that sometimes elements of the building are a little more beneficial. I think it is nice to have something there. I don't have an issue with the panel D, and the panel B, I don't know that I necessarily have an issue, but as a precedent setting, because this is a tasteful example of something that is very soft. The font is very narrow, it's light, and I think very passing, but I think it could easily change into something that's much more bold and loud and becomes an element. So as a precedent setting element, panel B does give me a little bit of concern. But panel C, D, and A, I think are provide enough visual interest in there. And I think there are elements of the building that are details or elements that could point to that, that if you need some additional, I'd even be in support of that as well. But it's just the precedent setting nature of that. Like, I don't mind this specific example, and I don't know if we can do a site specific, but I think then that gets to us choosing. And so I have concerns about that. Is the only specific concern I have.
And the only thing I would say is you are setting a precedent for staff, so we would have to follow whatever happens tonight, whatever you decide.
I can make just a clarification. The panel D, this kind of the radiuses that are on there, those are the kind of the railing designs from.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah. I think more of that.
Well, I mean, from a precedent standpoint, if we, you know, I agree that this is a very tasteful version of that, but from a precedent standpoint, if we wanted to exclude tonight B, you know, I'm not gonna be opposed to that, just from a, you know, basically saying no websites. But I do think it's, you know, it's a slippery slope for sure, and that's what I struggle with. I mean, I do like the idea that, you know, I mean, Four Seasons, everybody's gonna be able to go find that with a logo, but if it's a different type of project, you know, again, if there's a website that's showing what's going on, I think it's okay to draw interest and put a website on there.
Put the murals, and you don't have to have it. I don't know, it's opportunity for art again, temporarily, but still. Anyway, like I said, website is maybe not necessary, but you said either way, but.
Yeah, it's weird. I think of the intent of the website, right? And this is selling a product. musc.edu. It's not necessarily selling a product. CFC is actually, you know, but I don't know. Because this is so unique, I would almost say restricting the website at this point until we have more time to.
I guess the question is, who's using, I mean, is that bystander passing by, you look at the website and things like that? What is that for? you know, so.
I mean, I would see it as, that could easily be replaced with a QR code. You know, is a QR code really something that we want on the side of a construction that's going to be there for a long time? But it's compelling you to go to the website, it's selling something, it's, you know, it's attracting, I mean, you know.
Well, that's fine. People want to know what is going on, so.
I mean, and that's another thing, you know, you think about a community interest, right?
Precedent. That's the thing. Is this one, so.
And if this is like all the stuff that I didn't read, if this was regular signage, our regular signage ordinance does not allow advertising.
Yeah.
It's not a regular signage.
I know.
All right, well, it's late. Take a motion.
Throwing down the gauntlet.
I'll make a motion for approval with staff conditions and board comment that panel B not be included in the signage. But that if it wants to be replaced with mural or signage detail, as we've discussed here, that is appropriate. Or an architectural detail or mural, that is appropriate. And final review by staff.
Yeah, I would suggest maybe just leaving staff comments out so it doesn't confuse, since we included another panel in that.
Okay.
That it
Right.
could just be approval with board comments, blah, blah, just so that it doesn't.
I just want to make sure I wasn't missing anything about the signage policy in your comments if I leave.
The signage policy will, the whole thing's gonna be in the meeting minutes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
The signage policy will start to expand now. To include this temporary signs like that.
So I have approval with board condition of no panel B. And then, you know, the rest with typical staff review of permit, blah, blah, blah.
I'll second that.
All right, do you have that one down?
Yeah,
Well
I
enough? Okay, all right, Mr. Trantham, how do you vote?
Yay in favor.
Mr. Brown?
Yay in favor.
Ms. Subchuck?
Yay.
I'm also yay in favor. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for bringing it to us, you know, I mean.
Thank you for hanging in the whole time.
Then bring all your